Oi, the English are coming? Thank you, back guys, and I'm sure that it helps that, everyone else in the world is moving to the right, and that's not working out all that great, so the left seems better by comparison. Like, just on its face as it is. Hello, hello, everybody. Good morning. Back as we never really did defeat the Nazi ideology. I mean, Germany was never denazified. America was never denazified. We just kind of left it the way that it was. Although, like, I mean, we all hoped that. It's just there wasn't much actually in existence that showed that that was the case. Canada just cost us $2.1 billion by having American Whiskey Party. They just ended a 50-year-long deal to import American booze, based, honestly. I thought that was part of Canada's retaliation tariffs that haven't gone into effect yet. But I mean, if they're bringing the deadline up earlier, that's pretty good. We have some new tariff news today to go through anyway, but I'm not really keen on just jumping straight into it right now. The Queen Matriarch, we did not learn indeed. We simply learned how to do it better. Well, I mean, yeah. And we're going to talk a bit about that today as well, in that even before the rise of the Nazis, we were already setting the steps, like setting the stones for the pathway that the right in America would take to lead us to where we are today. Trump wants to replace King Charles as head of state in Canada. Yeah, okay, so that's what gets you, Batgas? Is when we start threatening to end the monarchy in Canada and replace it with the monarchy in America? I mean, it is what it is. I'll take what I can get. I don't particularly like the British king, but at the very least, he seems to be somewhat better than Donald Trump or Elon Musk or any of the, tech bros than we have in the States. Speaking of, though, did you guys know how much money that was spent on getting Trump to the Super Bowl? Because it was a lot of money. First of all, it costs like millions of dollars on its own to just get him at the Super Bowl. But beyond that, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but we had a little military flyover over the Super Bowl, which was being held in a closed dome stadium, and yet we still spent an ungodly amount of money getting ospreys to do a flyover. I don't know what it is with him and his love of ospreys, which, to be fair, they're really cool, but they're also like the most expensive aircraft that we have in terms of maintenance, in terms of running it. Like, I'm sure it's not the most expensive that we have in general, but in terms of maintenance costs alone, yeah. Know what convinced me is what we're seeing from the USA right now in the dictatorship forming. I mean, fair enough. That's true. So, on a lighter note, really quickly, just because this was the outcome following the end of the Super Bowl, And Americans who are very much not used to seeing this kind of stuff happening here, or rather, maybe they are, but the right just loves to complain about everything. Watch this video of Eagles fans celebrating, and obviously what they're doing here is illegal. They're damaging public property, but I mean, compare this to Europe or South America, and I mean, it's quite funny. Whoa, bit loud there. I don't know what that traffic pole did wrong, but hey, as long as you're moving somewhat over to the left, we'll fix that too eventually. I'm kidding, by the way, back guys. Like, I respect your belief, what it is. If you want to be a royalist, be a royalist. It's just, don't be a Nazi, and that's all I really care about. And obviously, you don't like Nazis, which is good. And so I'm happy. So, obviously, like, they're going overboard here. But this is small fries to Europeans. If you're gonna load for me. God, I hate Twitter. Love that. What's my internet doing? My internet's not even slow right now. What the hell? What's up, Ginger Fluff? Clearly. Does not like me. No one's hitting each other, no one's fighting each other, no one's lighting fires here. This is just like, first of all, I would much rather these people be doing this than driving around right now, considering they're fresh out of the Super Bowl and likely drunk as a skunk. So, like, however much money it costs to do this, to fix this, is not even relevant. Anthony Bishop, good morning. Or afternoon since you're in Oz. It's actually 3 o'clock in the morning here, because I have to stream in the middle of the night, because I still don't have an air conditioning. Speaking of, actually, I will not be streaming tomorrow. Sorry, I know I've had a few days off in a row over here, but it's going to get to 113 Fahrenheit on Wednesday, and it's going to be 107 tomorrow, so I'm going to go and drop, like, $500 on a portable air conditioner, because I can't, like, it's going to be a few more weeks until I get one installed, and I can't work, I can't sleep, I can't exercise, it's not working out. So we're going to go need to do that. But then I'll be back on Wednesday, if it all works out. Now where to start? Well, I suppose we could start with me complaining about the left. And also me giving the left some props. We're gonna have a bit of both. 113 Fahrenheit, geez. That sounds nice, or I'll happily swap with you. It does not sound nice to me. So, first off, we had another protest in Los Angeles, which is good. I want to see more of these. I want to see protests every day. Day after day after day after day until we start seeing some change. If y'all go home, it's over.
Woo! Make some noise! El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido.
Soon, you or we won't be able to live. We are quickly approaching the wet bulb temperature in some parts of the planet, and at the current direction, we are headed on track to boil away the oceans in a few hundred years. RIP humans. Yeah, look, we did pass the point where the 2 degrees Celsius goal is now no longer remotely viable, and it's gonna get worse. we're just gonna have to try our best to make do. It's like there's no change we can make now, not at least us as the people of the United States, to fix what we're doing, because, you know, we're just gonna make it infinitely worse. We decided to stop trying to fix it at all. It's 17 degrees here. I hate the cold. I hate the cold too. I prefer the heat to the cold any day of the week. It's just heat after a point in which you don't have the ability to cool down is rough. Like, it's rougher than usual. So I like this protest, but I want to see this. I want to see Germany like protests. I mean, not even space to walk in these protests. We're not like, it's a sea of humans. That's insane. A literal sea of humans. Comparatively,
Make some noise!
this is nowhere near strong enough. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. The left is divided, though. Well, it's not even that the left is divided. The left is pretty much non-existent, Captain. In Germany, they came together, regardless of whatever they think. They're out here standing in a sea of people protesting against fascism, against Nazism, against what they're seeing is happening in America and what they know will happen in Germany if the AfD wins. Whereas here, we have 2016 era resist libs doing their best, but everybody needs to be out on the street. Everybody. I don't care about, like, German politics all that much right now specifically. It's more just the people rising up, going out into the streets and protesting. We've been covering them. I covered a few clips last time around where they were singing anti-fascist songs from World War II. This is what you need to see. Oh, thank you as well, Ginger Fluff. Why are the sounds not on for that? That is what it is. It's just, it's not enough. That's the point there. God damn, Anthony Bishop coming in with, coming in for the throat right there. So, as for weak rhetoric from the left, here in America, we seem to be emulating ancient Rome's bread and circuses plan. Yeah, well, we've been doing bread and circuses for a little while, and yes, it is working, unfortunately, but are you surprised? We're pretty fucking dumb as a country. And this is the opposition that we have on our side. Cohere and Scream. Like, if you are your average Democrat, not on the left, not online, not engaged in the same way, and this is what you're hearing?
I'm trying to figure out what leverage we actually have.
And Antifa is left, Captain.
What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. What leverage do we have?
You want to know what leverage you have, Hakeem Jeffries? You have the leverage of both Trump and Musk are doing illegal things constantly. You have the leverage of the American people, that majority did not vote for Donald Trump, and the majority of which is angry at losing their money, their rights, losing their programs that are helping them stay alive. I'm seeing, like, MAGA accounts crying about how they lost payments to the things that they feed their kids with. I'm seeing MAGA accounts realizing that the most DEI grants go to white women, or rather went to white women. So that is some of the leverage that you have. You have the fact that an unelected official, an unelected person, a billionaire, the richest person in the world, is blocking members of Congress from entering buildings, which is another, like, you don't even have to wait for the police. Just move him to the side. Move the people that Elon put forward out of the way and walk into the building. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? You are literally part of Congress. You're doing your job. I don't care how mad people get about it. Like, I don't care how mad the right gets about it, rather. Just do your fucking job.
Trying to figure out what leverage we actually have.
You have all the leverage in the world. Just because, like, they're a majority, so it's their government, and if they want to destroy the country and dismantle it piece by piece, well, I guess we have to let them. It's actually insane. Speaking of that, we saw this morning, it's kind of crazy. You want to link it in the chat, Anthony? Because I have no idea what exactly you saw this morning. But I'm sure it is insane. You know what else is insane? Just real quick before we get to that. Meet Paula White, who leads Trump's new Faith Office. Saying no to President Trump would be like saying no to God. It's like a joke. Oh yeah, we're gonna get there, and I can't actually watch that to begin with. This video is unavailable in my country. That's annoying. But I do know what you're talking about. The fact that this is a thing, first of all, the fact that the Faith Office is a thing is insane and un-American. It is distinctly un-American, considering the very First Amendment to the Constitution. But regardless of that, on top of not only this being blatantly unconstitutional and un-American, there's also the fact that it's fucking culty. To say no to the president would be to say no to God? The First Amendment is the freedom of speech, religion, and the right to organize. That's not the word that's in there, but it's the same thing. It's the right to organize, the right to... Wait, is press in there? Yes. Speech, religion, press, and organizing. Coherent screams, did you see his interview with Jon Stewart? So sad how this is playing out. I'd like to think this is a forehead move, but they want it to get worse before they start to resist. The thing is, Jon Stewart doesn't actually believe that Donald Trump is a fascist, which is insane. And so what is he going to say that's going to be relevant? He doesn't believe the man's a fascist. Of course we're going to keep going until things get worse. We're going to keep going until things are worst. Because freedom of religion is like the way that freedom of religion works in the United States is a separation of church and state. State quash? Like, we don't have religion as part of the state. We have a distinct separation of the church of state and state. Let me read it to you. Church and state. Address the government was what I added in with organizing. But yes, you're right. Jesus Christ, just give me the part of the Constitution. It's like, it's pretty annoying that I can't just go onto the whitehouse.gov website and pull up the Constitution now. Because it's gone. It was taken down. It's very annoying. Very much an inconvenience, actually. I'm trying to find, like, anything that just has the actual part of the Constitution in it. Why is all of it gone? Can I just pull up the actual fucking Constitution? Oh, there's this one. So the First Amendment has two provisions concerning religion, the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. The Establishment Clause prohibits the government from establishing a religion. The precise definition of establishment is unclear. Historically, it meant prohibiting state-sponsored churches, such as the Church of England, as in the church and the state are separate, both historically and in the actual Establishment Clause. If I could read you the actual clause... which I can, actually. Separation of church and state is a phrase that refers to the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The phrase dates back to the early days of U.S. history, and Thomas Jefferson referred to the First Amendment as creating a wall of separation between church and state as the third president of the United States. This term is often employed in court cases. For example, U.S. Supreme Court Judge Hugo Black famously stated in Everson v. Board of Education that the First Amendment has erected a wall between church and state, and that wall must be kept high and impregnable. So, like, it is a secular country. We were founded as a secular country. The United States was never a Christian country. Now, we have "In God We Trust" on the money, but we don't have a national, like, agency for religion, or rather, we didn't. We never have until now. We had religion as a country. In fact, we value religion as a country, but religion and what the state actually does never tied to one another. Not overtly and not legally. Now, whether or not there was an influence, there was absolutely an influence for a long time, but the actual founding documents prevent this, or attempt to prevent this. When YouTube auditors have more stones than a member of Congress, it's a sad day. I want to see them arresting and carting off Congress in handcuffs and watch that speed run in court. Well, I mean, unfortunately, you might see it, but from the other way around. Have you seen some of her videos? They're quite wild. No, who are you talking about? I'm not seeing a chat of you, like, naming a person. Oh, are we talking about, Paula White? Never mind. Yeah, no, I have not, actually, and I don't actually want to. It sounds like brain damage to me. But, at the same time, we got other brain damage to do. Yeah, I'll have a look. Once she starts making the news, I'll have a look. For now, I'd like to protect myself from this person. So, on to some bad news as well. A Louisiana senator defends his statements on the state's black maternal health. If you have a senator who is willing to dismiss 1/3 of his constituents, said an advocate, what happens when they walk into a hospital and get treatment? So what this is about is Bill Cassidy, senator, being under fire for his comment of, quote, if you correct our population for race, we're not as much of an outlier as it otherwise appears in relation to the high rates of pregnancy-related deaths in Louisiana. Now, what he's saying specifically is that about black people, black women. Where's the full image of the quote? That? I want to see him say it. Bill Cassidy. Well, I mean, our death rates are only bad if you count black women. Why are you not counting black women, Bill Cassidy? Now, I say that not to minimize the issue, but to focus the issue as to where it would be, for whatever reason, people of color have a higher incidence of maternal mortality. I wonder if maybe a medical system in which people could access healthcare might prevent these people from dying. I wonder. Cassidy also attributed the disproportionate rates to how the state defines pregnancy-related deaths. Sometimes maternal mortality includes up to a year after birth and would include someone being killed by her boyfriend. Citation needed, but honestly, if it's still related to the pregnancy, then it's still related to the pregnancy. A lot of people, once they have a baby, enter a point in which their relationship kind of crashes down because one of the largest factors in why people start domestically abusing their spouse is financial issues. And one of the things that could cause financial issues is having a child. Children are expensive for whatever reason. If only someone could get on this and figure it out. Why doesn't Canada have this issue? Why doesn't Virginia have this issue? Why doesn't New York have this issue anywhere near to the same extent? I wonder, I wonder, I wonder. Louisiana has some of the highest black maternal rates in the country. A report from the state's health department shows that 4 black mothers die for every 1 white mother, and 2 black babies die for every 1 white baby. In the United States, black mothers are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white mothers. I wonder, I wonder, I wonder, I wonder. Canada has some of the issues in many of their marginalized areas. Well, like, these issues would exist regardless, but it's not about getting rid of the issues as a whole. It's more about reducing the amount of harm that's done to people. We're not at the point where, I mean, we could be. We could entirely remove this as an issue, but that would require spending even more money on healthcare when all the people in charge want to do is spend as little as they possibly can on healthcare instead. Black reproductive justice advocates are decrying Cassidy's latest comments. Well, of course they are. That may be why the numbers are so poor, Howell told NBC News, because he, like other elected officials in his state, don't really care to address the factors that are causing black maternal mortality. Of course not. It's not just abuse, though. Kansas has 2 counties in it. Johnson County has the highest GDP and lowest maternal and infant death rates. Well, it's not about abuse. It's about access to money. They're literally right next to each other and across the street. Well, one, Kansas has abortion enshrined in its state constitution. So abortion rights exist in Kansas. But secondly, Louisiana has a lower GDP. Less access to, like, less money means less access to healthcare, less access to healthy food, these were the rates per row. Oh, well, you should have said that to begin with. Regardless of access to healthcare, it's still about money in the end. It always is about money. Yeah, okay, there we go. In every case here, money would solve quite a lot of the pre-existing conditions that would remedy this, you know? I'm showing that too, yeah. No, I get it, Matty Holmes. I just misunderstood what you said earlier.
Now, there's different things we can do about that. I have something.
Can I hear you or not?
Called the Connected Moms Act. Now, there's different.
Wyandotte has the highest death rates. Yeah. We're gonna keep heading down this road where this is going to start being a problem more and more and more everywhere, and it's kind of intentional in that, yes, they do want to, you know, exterminate anybody that they don't see as ideal, but also they want poor people to suffer and they want to siphon money. So these things work together. And the only people who are going to benefit from this are the health insurance companies, the people who own the hospitals, the people in charge. Not even like wealthy Republicans benefit from this, because this brings down healthcare overall for everybody. There's less research. I mean, to be fair, like RFK is going to be running healthcare now. So there's less research. There's less safety standards. There's less general ability to escape disease through vaccination, through any form of public health measures. People are going to die in a whole lot of states and cities and counties all over the country, and unfortunately probably other countries as well, based on the actions of this administration. But all of this always goes back to money. What's up, Headless Chicken?
Different things we can do about that. I have something called the Connected Moms Act. Women, I think I remember correctly, that African American women have an increased incidence of preeclampsia, but it doesn't matter. If you have a poor public transit system, a mom who is dependent upon it lives 20 miles away from the doctor, and she's got hypertension just before she delivers, you'd like a way to better monitor her than asking her to come to the doctor's office every 2 weeks. So what we
No, they haven't confirmed RFK yet, but they're likely to.
proposed is the Connected Moms Act, which allows remote monitoring of blood pressure, teaching the mom how to check for protein in her urine, other things that might be a marker for complications of or progression of preeclampsia. And then if the mom has an issue, you can send the ambulance to the mom or the home health agency to the mom. We also have the maternal.
It's almost like we had systems in place, and we do in other states have systems in place that would remedy this issue. All it requires is funding and access.
Health Improvements Grant, which again is to promote studies of this issue, as well as to look as potential remedies, if you will, if there's racial bias that's discovered in how healthcare is delivered. So we've got a couple things that we're floating out there trying to.
So, like, yeah, this is just the fact that Republicans are evil and they hate you. That's what I'll attribute to Bill Cassidy. Right. So, the Democrats are really making me mad now. We know that the Democrats have always been weak, especially with their rhetoric, but I mean, really, this?
Oh, I'm concerned. I'm concerned because in the past 2 weeks, they've turned off Medicaid for a full day. Those are hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians and tens of millions of Americans, including a lot of children that would be harmed. For a while, they paused a large portion of our state highway funds to us and to other states. Those are the quality of our roads and bridges and how safe our people are when they drive on them. If they eliminated the Department of Education and its funding, that's $500 million in meals, in
if they eliminate the Department of Education. Why don't we maybe read Project 2025 and act as if that's what they're doing? Because everything they've done so far has been directly from Project 2025 or some additional ideas that they've added on top of it. Yet there has not been a case so far, as we've started working through Project 2025, where they, I don't know, had a chapter that, like, you know, maybe we should skip this chapter. We haven't had that yet. What are you going to do, Bashir? Organize a state protest or do nothing like normal? Exactly, coherent scream.
Breakfast. Nothing. And in lunches for our kids that otherwise might.
First of all, like, even your rhetoric in this is weak as fuck. I'm sorry, but Americans are, at this point, sick. We're a diseased country. Appealing to other people's goodwill is not working. Appealing to people that will be hurt is not working. What you need to do is attack. You need to, like, you can appeal to how this will hurt people, but you don't do so in a way that's just asking, well, you know, this would be the case, and, you know, hundreds of thousands of kids would go hungry. Motherfucker, they attacked Tim Walz constantly during the lead up to the election for providing meals to children. They called it socialism. Who cares? Call them evil, say that they're killing your kids, they're stealing your money, that they want your kids to starve on the street and then go work in a coal mine. Like, it's the same message, but just say it better. Dems huff and puff and stomp their feet. We are mad, crosses arms, pouty face, so pathetic now. Well, the thing is, like, people like Bashir are almost certainly just going to continue on this way because they're not actually afraid. This doesn't do anything to them. They are wealthy enough that they will probably even make more money. The tax cuts will affect them. And beyond this, the Democrats have been allergic to winning for more than a decade. I mean, for even really two, minus Obama. And Obama only won because he had Riz, right? I don't know. Look, the Dems at this point are controlled opposition. I would need to be, or at least the vast majority of them, not all of them. People like AOC still matter and make a difference, but most of these people are just pretending to be mad. If any of them actually cared, we would have done something about it. Meanwhile, like, this is the kind of messaging that's being sent out to be spread among Democrats. This isn't like an elected official. This is Pastor Ben. This is some, like, pastor. Do not resign. It's a trap. Congress has not authorized the buyouts. How about you can say it's a trap? Donald Trump refuses to pay his workers all the time. What makes you think he'll pay you for this? Also, Congress has not even authorized this, so it's not like they could pay you anyway. Do not resign. Uphold the integrity of your duty and resist MAGA incompetence. Do not resign. Do your national duty and protect this country from a fascist coup. MAGA incompetence only applies to MAGA voters. The people in charge are not incompetent, they're just evil. 3. Document everything. Keep detailed records to protect yourself and expose MAGA's failures. That, I would say, is a good point. 4. Demand excellence. Refuse to accept MAGA mediocrity. Hold leadership accountable. How about dem mediocrity, huh? Because MAGA is mediocre for the entirety of the working class. But it was your job as the Democrats to stop this. So it seems like both parties are pretty mediocre to me. And the only people who even really want MAGA around are the wealthy, are the people who are stealing your money, and the idiots who believe everything they see on Fox News. 5. MAGA will fail. Don't surrender to the MAGA buyout and they won't be able to destroy democracy. Literally, they would just fire these people anyway, but, I mean, you still shouldn't bend the knee in advance. It's just like, you could do so much better than this. Coherent Scream, quote, I'm calling on all Tennesseans, call your representatives, let them know how you feel, go to town hall, redress your government in person, and I'll meet you there, I'll lead the charge. Like, someone who truly cared would do exactly this. And you're right. These people don't care. And they never have. They really never have. Now, at the same time...
Next tonight...
Whoa. We're seeing an increase in Nazi activity, but also something relatively good did come out of this. Matty Holmes have been calling out that there will be an internal civil war in the Trump coalition MAGA group for a while now. I mean, so have I, yeah. It just seems like that already happened now. I feel like they might have already consolidated on the capitalist class side because I'm not seeing too much infighting these days. I mean, even like people like Bannon are relatively quieter than they were before because it seems like they've just been integrated into part of the plan for their nationalist party in a couple years. So in Ohio, we had another Nazi rally. And before we watch this video, just know for a fact that they're not telling you the whole story here on ABC, and I'll show you why in a second. And it's a really clear indicator that you can't trust any of the media anymore.
Disturbing scene in an Ohio suburb, a hate group dressed in all black and some waving Nazi flags gathering on an overpass in the Cincinnati area. They were confronted by residents of a historically black community. Here's ABC's Perry Russell.
Tonight, the clash above a highway near
I did see that farm worker.
Cincinnati, Ohio. Neighbors confronting neo-Nazis dressed in black, waving swastika flags on an overpass north of the city.
In this neighborhood, we do stand for something. This here turf is golden soil, and it won't be tarnished.
Their shit did indeed get wrecked.
At least one neo-Nazi seen holding a long gun. Police shutting down the overpass, trying to keep everyone apart. The neo-Nazis taking off in a U-Haul. One person seen running down the road, throwing something against the side of the truck. A swastika flag ripped away and set on fire.
Need you, Lord, now to come in the midst of.
A minister from a nearby Baptist church holding a prayer service, calming tension.
They did mention the flag on fire. I'm surprised.
People are afraid, they're scared, they're angry.
These neo-Nazis were wearing similar clothes and face coverings to the neo-Nazis who marched through downtown Columbus, Ohio in November.
I want to see what happened to the Nazis that were in Adelaide that we covered a couple weeks ago happened to those Nazis. I want to see the police beat the living shit out of them and arrest them all.
Black community leaders later making the same march as a counter-protest. Tonight, the mayor of Cincinnati.
Okay. But here is them getting their shit rocked really quickly.
What's going on, man? Shit, man.
Burn that bitch, man. You feel me?
Yeah, burn that bitch up.
By the way, this is what you do with a swastika flag.
Let that
This is the only thing that you should be doing with a swastika flag.
bitch burn.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about?
I'm out.
Still looking at shit's off 15 shit. Purple, man. What's the
Get them boys the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! Fuck y'all flag! Hitler been dead. Y'all living in the 40s.
Y'all living in the 40s.
What's up?
Love to see it. But what happened afterwards is even better. Because it looks like the citizens of Lincoln Heights, Ohio, created a well-regulated militia to protect their community from the emerging threat of MAGA Nazis and white supremacists, currently emboldened by the Trump regime and oligarch Musk. This is what your Second Amendment is for. The whole point, by the way. Oh, and on top of that, Matty Holmes, I do still hope that you're correct about Bannon, but this is what your Second Amendment's for. This is why I keep telling you to arm yourself, to learn how to use a weapon, because when the Nazis come to town, you want to get your boys and your mates and all of your neighbors and do this.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Look at my baby. Fuck you talking about?
We're going Black Panthers up in here.
My baby, that man.
Yo, her gun is huge. It's like half of her height. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, what do you doing? Fuck dick suck.
This is what a well-regulated militia's for.
Fuck on. Alright, cool. Let the cars come. Just don't let them people come back no more.
This is what I want you to do. I want you to learn how to use a weapon so that when Nazis come, or, you know, just generally white supremacist militias, whether it be the Klan or whatever the hell it is to stop, is to show up with guns. Scare them off. I know this happened in Cali in the 60s and 70s, and we got the strictest gun laws in the nation. Interesting to see how this plays out. Arming black people is the only thing that will get the US government to put restrictions on gun ownership, it seems. So I am curious to see how this will play out.
I ain't gonna even say Cincinnati, nigga. This Lincoln Heights. Yeah. Yeah.
This is now your job. Protect your community, because they're not going to do it for you. Now, and so, on top of this, now just moving slightly away, we had Donald Trump saying this today, or rather yesterday, for you guys.
We'll build beautiful communities for the 1.9 million people. We'll build beautiful communities, safe communities. Could be 5, 6, could be 2, but we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are.
You're not wrong, Dan did so. I would rather have no guns, but we have more guns than people in America, and almost all of those guns are owned by the Nazis and the white supremacists, so we need to arm the left. It gets doomed to bleed, but it's that dooming has been set in stone too long ago to change now.
But we'll build safe communities a little bit away from where they are, where all of this danger is. In the meantime, I would own this. Think of it as a real estate development for the future.
I love referring to Gaza as a real estate development.
It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're going to have much better housing, much better. In other words, I'm talking about building a.
Openly just saying the Palestinians will not be able to return.
They're going to have much better housing, much better.
Too far?
Think of it as a real estate development for the future. It would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians have the right to return?
No, they wouldn't, because they're
So
going to
no
have
right to
much
return.
better housing, much better. In other
We've dropped the pretense of a ethnic cleansing that's only temporary. Now it's just an ethnic cleansing.
words, I'm talking about building a permanent place for them, because if they have to return now, it'll be years before you could ever. It's not habitable. It will be years before it could happen. I'm talking about starting to build, and I think I could make a deal with Jordan. I think I could make a deal with Egypt. You know, we give them billions and billions of dollars a year.
Well, like, when I say set in stone, I mean, like, there's not much that can change it. Not that it's impossible, but I still would, I would still prefer to be ready in case it doesn't change, damned it so. Like, yes, it could, and I would argue that it's still in both the left and the right's best interest to attempt to avoid any kind of bloodshed, but if it happens, if the Nazis are in your community, I want you to have a gun. Late night last night, 32% of Americans own guns, definitely all different types of people. Yeah, but the vast majority of them are right-wingers, is the point late night last night. Not all of them are Nazis, not all of them are fascists, but a lot of them are. And a lot of them also have more guns than they're legally allowed to. A lot of them also have guns that they haven't reported. Everyone does this all over the country because of our lax gun laws. It's not a good thing. No one should be doing that. And ideally, we shouldn't have more guns than people in the United States, which we do. We have total number of guns in the US. More than 500 million guns in the US compared to our population of about 350 million. Sorry, yeah, like, it's insane. I mean, they stand it, so, but the thing is, like, if they shoot first here, they're not just shooting one, like, that was you organizing and rallying to change the position of your government. So understand that it's a little different when we're talking about they want to come and kill people from marginalized communities. We are, like, in that part of the rise of fascism now. Things are moving very quickly. It just said 120 guns for every 100 person. Yeah. That makes the US the most armed country with 120.5 guns per 100 people. It's too many. But also, almost all of those are primarily on one side of the aisle. Now, Trump also had this to say. This one was today.
Mr. President, back on Gaza, the White House press secretary told us last week that you're committed to rebuilding Gaza. Steve Witkoff said that process would take 10 to 15 years. Does your commitment to rebuilding Gaza extend beyond your time in office?
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices. But we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be, the remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe. But we'll make it into a very good site for future development by somebody. We'll let other countries develop parts of it. It'll be beautiful. People can come from all over the world and live there. But
the Palestinians aren't allowed back.
To take care of the Palestinians. We're going to make sure they live beautifully and in harmony and in peace, and that they're not murdered. This has been the most dangerous site anywhere in the world to live.
So, if you didn't catch that, because I didn't, it was in here a minute ago. Sorry, I was not paying attention.
I'm committed to. We may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices. But we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into.
So, in this video, he said that he would not be open to resettling Palestinians in the United States. You know who he is open to resettling in the United States? South Africans. Surprise! And Dan did so. Yes, 166 years ago, his well-regulated militia came and tried to invade you from Mexico and in Costa Rica. And yes, that was bad. But right now, they're just going to do that again, but this time instead of a well-regulated militia, it'll be the U.S. military. Buying and owning Gaza is ridiculous. Trump policies in any country we don't agree with, we will either invade or buy. He thinks he's Hitler. That's who he thinks he is, Batgaz.
U.S. President Donald
Or rather, Stalin, probably.
Trump's offer to take in white South Africans as refugees fleeing persecution may not spur quite the rush he anticipated. An executive order he signed on Friday provided for...
I wonder, why are we offering white South Africans refugee status when they are a minority where they live, but hold more than 70% of the property?
Resettlement in the U.S. of, quote, Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination as refugees. Afrikaners are mostly white South African descendants of Dutch and French settlers, some tracing back their roots in the country to the 17th century. But it's not clear they want to flee the place they've called home for hundreds of years.
Why would you want to go? Hasn't been any really bad.
72% of all total agriculture holdings, for one.
Taking over of land, the people of carrying on like normal. And, what are you going to do over there?
That was the response from Neville van der Merwe, a white 78-year-old pensioner living in Cape Town. And he had this to say about Trump cutting off aid to his country.
We all know how Mr. Trump behaves, so it's not...
You mean like Elon Musk last night tonight?
Why should they do that? It is being spiteful.
It's funny that even the people, like even the white South Africans that Trump is offering refugee status to, don't want to leave South Africa. If they leave, then they lose their land holdings. What's wrong with fixing Gaza? Gaza is a shit show. Nothing's wrong with fixing Gaza. Owning Gaza and not allowing the Palestinians back in is my issue. But also, we're still going to be funding Israel, and we're also going to fully be ethnically cleansing the Palestinians after 400,000 of them are dead. So I feel like maybe if we're going to fix Gaza, we should send all that money to the Palestinians and have them do it. We can bring in some materials. We can bring in some laborers if they need some extra hands, considering most of the people left living there are children. And the ICJ with the open case against Israel for illegal settlements in the West Bank. Beyond that, we're Israel's just bombing the shit out of the West Bank right now. Israel and their settlers are criminal against international law. Yeah, so bad that Netanyahu had to have a weird flight path to avoid European country airspace on his way over to the US because they all have arrest warrants out for him because of the ICC and the ICJ cases against him. But yes, mostly just the ICC arrest warrants. We're also threatening the ICC and the ICJ as the United States, by the way, which is just real fun. But regardless, even the people who don't want to come to the US are able to come to the US, but the people who we are forcibly removing from their homes and territory and not going to allow them back in, they can't come to the US. It's too far.
Why should they do that? It is being spiteful.
Trump is pushing back against a law signed last month by President Cyril Ramaphosa, aimed at addressing the country's unequal land ownership. White South Africans make up less than a tenth of the country's population, but a legacy of the racist apartheid government left 3/4 of privately owned land in the hands of the white minority, after 3.5 million black people were forced from their homes. The new law makes...
Yep, the ICC arrest warrants are against both Israel and Hamas, and that's correct. Both of those should be arrested, but...
It's easier for the state to expropriate land for what it says is the public interest.
And we will not be bullied.
So it is literally just, we're going to redistribute the land of the 1/10 of our population who owns 75% of all of the land, so that, everyone can have some of the land, because not only are this 1/10 a minority and incredibly wealthy, but they're also the colonizers. No shit. I feel like that should have been done at the end of apartheid, but it is what it is. This is absolutely based of South Africa, which unsurprising now considering they're the ones that are most prominent in their lawsuit against Israel. We're going to take back what was taken? Yeah, seems fucking based. But no, white South Africans are now discriminated against for their race specifically. Not anything to do with, I don't know, maybe their land ownership, not anything to do with maybe the consolidation of wealth. No, it has to be their race.
The National Congress, or ANC, has defended the measure and accused Trump of amplifying misinformation propagated by AfriForum, an Afrikaner-led group. And even that group, which lobbied Trump's previous administration on their cause, said it was not taking up his offer.
We have to state categorically, we don't want to move elsewhere.
That's AfriForum CEO Callie Creel speaking on Saturday. Alongside Creel was Philip Buys, who chairs the Solidarity Trade Union, a group that says it represents 600,000 Afrikaner families.
We may disagree with the ANC, but we love the country. As in any community, there are individuals who wish to immigrate, but the repatriation of Afrikaners as refugees is not a solution for us. We want to
Trump, if he proceeds with the colonization of Gaza, he will have the majority of the international community against him, and he will have, it will be a blow too. Don't know if we can sanction the U.S., but if the Gaza colonization happens, then the doors are open to sanction the U.S. I fucking wish y'all would sanction the U.S. No, we're totally doing this, 100% going to do this, and none of them care how much the international community is mad about it, because they're all banking on the people in the international community that are upset about it all being deposed in the next couple of years. Especially with Elon Musk and his propaganda machine.
to build a future in South Africa.
Some said they appreciated Trump's gesture. Werner van Niekerk is a carpenter in Bothasig.
I think it's a very nice gesture from Donald Trump.
It's just very funny that when Donald Trump is asked if he would be okay with allowing the Palestinians to be rehoused in the United States, the answer that he gives is, "Oh no, it's too far. It's too far." But South Africa, no, that's perfectly fine. I don't know why you folks think Trump cares about how America is viewed on the world stage other than as a threat. Yeah, literally. I feel like the preference is to be viewed as a threat. It's too far, he means they're too brown. Basically. That is what that's... To have to tell people that this is, like... And then they argue against it as if, like, they have any form of idea of what's going on. And I know that the vast majority of these people are like, not people, they're just bots. But funny, did you see dictator Erdogan criticizing Trump for Gaza? How even Erdogan is a man Trump likes, is telling him that is too far. That's because Turkey has been really outspoken about Gaza for a while, not because Erdogan actually gives a shit about the Palestinians. It's because it's, oh, Glitterbell, thank you for the raid. I didn't see that. It's not that Erdogan cares about the Palestinians. It's because this is what's giving him props on the global stage. Erdogan always wants whatever is best for Turkey and for Erdogan. Erdogan wants Turkey to be viewed as the global leader of the Middle East, the hegemon of the Middle East, basically. And to be viewed this way, I mean, you need to do a lot of good, right? You need to do stuff that helps your region. Iran is the regional hegemon. I kept saying global, I meant regional. Regional hegemon. Right now, it's Iran. And the only competition Iran has is Saudi Arabia. Turkey wants to take attention away from Saudi Arabia, who is an even more prominent Trump ally, and has been pulling attention to themselves through using Gaza for well over a year now. It was maybe like 8 months ago, Erdogan threatened to invade Israel to, like, put a stop to this, like they did in was it Libya or Lebanon? A few like years before that, to not fight against Israel, but to bring in the military and to stop hostilities. Now, whether or not he would have ever actually done that, or if it would have been done correctly, I don't know, and I don't really care. Never happened, because it's all talk. Erdogan will just say shit. Now then. what's next? All right. Actually, there is this. This is like a small little tidbit, but we do have a measles outbreak in at least one vaccinated county in Texas, so be aware of that if you live in Texas. I kept screaming at all the Genocide Joe folks that Trump was just going to glass it all. I guess that's a small price to pay. Well, I mean, to be fair, we all did Headless Chicken, and I mean, either they didn't listen or they didn't care. It's one or the other. And it really does seem like they didn't care is probably the correct answer. So I just want to touch on 2 more topics before we really get into the main topics here. No, you don't. What? So Republicans are going to come for your benefits soon. Your Social Security, your Medicare, and Medicaid, which is first up on the chopping block out of these 3.
Opportunity here in unified government to...
You don't understand, Visora? 1,000 civilian deaths are just as bad as 100,000? I mean, morally, any deaths are bad. But yes, the more you add into the number of death, the worse it actually gets. It's almost like you're not arguing against people who are good faith when they're arguing that somehow that either Donald Trump won't glass or try and annex Gaza, or B, that he would somehow be better about Gaza than Joe Biden, who was also horrible on Gaza. This has been U.S. foreign policy for like decades anyway. It's a likelihood of any president would be fuck Gaza. Likelihood of Trump being fuck Gaza is about 10 times higher than any other politician.
To actually address mandatory spending.
Yeah.
Mandatory spending is the biggest driver of the debt in this country, and so we have to address that. And that's what the House Republicans are so solely focused on. While
hey guys, why is mandatory spending called mandatory spending? I wonder.
Taking care of all these other agenda items that we've discussed, taxes and all the like.
So you do believe that there will be an effort to cut into mandatory spending in order to get some offsets for some of the spending in the reconciliation bill?
Yes, that's what we've been discussing. And
or evil, Batgaz, because a lot of them do see it. They're just okay with it.
As I said, I think this is our once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Opportunity here.
So
unified.
what mandatory spending is spending that has been appropriated by law, by Congress. It is... A law was passed that says that this spending is required, here's what it will go to, and then that spending is then spent, is allocated. Why the fuck are conservatives like deeply, deeply obsessed with AOC? Because I see this shit all the time. Like, every day you go on Twitter and you just find, like, weird conservatives simping over AOC. And also, like, being horrible to her while also simping for her in, like, the worst possible ways. Well, like, I know that, like, they want to fuck her, but they also hate her. Maybe it's the conflation between, do I hate her or do I actually just, like, want to fuck her? I'm honestly, probably some of them want to just be her. Alright, let me get this set up for the next segment. And yeah, like, who doesn't, really? Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I forgot, you know, the average mental, like, the average level of brain activity going on in a conservative man is about equivalent to that of like a 12-year-old boy, so that tracks. Actually, the GOP at large, really. Yeah, not surprised. Okay. Now I'm gonna go to the bathroom. When I come back, then we'll talk about some of this stuff. Actually, yeah, you know what? We'll start with this one, then we'll go to tariffs. All right. Do the stretching. Do not let your back become like mine. I do stretching every day, but you're right, I do need to do more. I'll be able to actually make sure my body doesn't break down entirely if I can have air conditioning. My body's already fucked, by the way, to Ginger Fluff. I have fibromyalgia. Coherent screams, they say part of the reason Trump has got so much traction is he dumbed down politics to a point our dumbed down population can understand easily. Average word length of his speeches is like 4th grade. Well, the thing is, it's not even just that he dumbed it down for that, it's he is that dumb. Oh, thank you for the bits, Headless Chicken. Donald Trump used to have to, like, back in his first presidency, the security briefings that are given to him daily were reduced from Obama's like 8 pages-ish to 1 page, including graphs and photos. And there was several reports from people who were working in his staff last time around that he needed, they needed to put his name into documents regularly, or he wouldn't read them. He'd be unable to pay attention long enough to actually read them. Now, thanks for the follow, Joe Blow. Now, I just changed my mind because I realized I want to do the next segment after this next segment because I want to use that next segment to transition to the one after. So we are going to start with tariffs. Everyone's favorite. Hickman dead. I love the poorly educated Donald Trump. True. So, we got new tariffs. We got tariffs on steel and aluminum products for everybody. Every country in the world is subject to these tariffs. Now, let's find out, first off, why, and second of all, by how much. Or well, it's 25%, but I wonder, Headless Chicken.
I'll be announcing probably Tuesday or Wednesday at a news conference reciprocal tariffs, and very simply, it's if they charge us, we charge them. That's all.
When does it go into effect, sir?
30-day pause on tariffs to Canada and Mexico. We never paused China's tariffs, for example, but this is everyone.
But I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed.
Fat guys, the guy who, like, discovered aluminum was British, and he called it aluminum. You guys are the ones that say it wrong with aluminium. The British guy who coined the phrase, who named the actual, like, element, is aluminum.
Almost immediately, but I'll be announcing the details of it, highly detailed. And
highly detailed
for everybody, including the other countries. But if they are charging us 130% and we're charging them nothing, it's not going to stay that way. It won't affect everybody because there's somewhere we have similar tariffs. But the ones that are taking advantage of the United States,
good to see you, Anthony.
We're going to have it's reciprocity.
Have a lovely day.
We're going to have a reciprocal. We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday.
Tomorrow?
Malcolm Cho. Monday, yeah, tomorrow.
What countries will those go on?
Everybody. Steel.
Everybody.
Including Canada and Mexico.
Yeah, any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff.
What about aluminum, sir?
Aluminum too.
10%?
No, 25%.
25 for aluminum.
25 for both. I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza.
So, this is gonna make a lot of shit more expensive. If you couldn't put 2 and 2 together, we use a lot of steel and aluminum as a society. First off, if you want to build any houses, it's already going to be infinitely more expensive with the tariffs on wood coming in from Canada. But adding in aluminum and steel to this list just makes things infinitely worse. This also makes it harder for people to manufacture goods in the United States because we don't have steel production to an extent of it being enough in the US to run any industry on. Not a single one can run, I believe, with solely steel produced in the US. Not at least without the raw materials also included. Yeah, negligible steel manufacturing at best. Yeah, that was where I was going with that. I'm so glad I'm 1,000 miles away and I could have a very sore face right now with the jabs I take, but I do apologize. Sometimes I can't resist. Nah, I wouldn't hit you. The jabs are always rhetorical with me, Batgaz. I know I'm right. That dang telegraph operator with the fat-fingered aluminum, it was discovered, then announced, sent across the Atlantic, and here we are? I have no idea what you're on about there, Coherent Screams. Ickman Dead, how much will SpaceX have to fork out for high-grade specialist metals now? Well, funny enough, the companies that ally with Donald Trump are often exempt from these tariffs, at least in one direction. When the tariffs are put both on imports and exports, it still does tend to affect those companies, but likely SpaceX will just be exempt from the tariffs. Still waiting for Kirk and Spock to show up and show us how to make great transparent aluminum. Me, who's never watched Star Trek.
As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it.
Oh wait, now we're back to Gaza?
People may give it to
Oh, okay, yeah. That was the second half. Exempt, who would have thunk it? Yeah, well, I mean, not only did he do this last time around with companies that are allied to him, but also in general, just a lot of his supporters are affected by this. I see. Well, I can't argue with you considering I'm still waiting for my Aussie citizenship. Now, here's Canada's statement on the subject. Actually, wait, sorry. We have one more.
First, he came for Mexico and Canada. Now he's coming for us. Yep, President Trump's tariff war is heading down under. So just how much could it cost us?
A lot, considering one of the only things that Australia produces and exports is iron ore. Now, we don't make much steel here either. We sell the natural resources and have other people make steel, much to my, dismay. But it one way or the other, these fall back on Australia, just like they do on every other country.
All bets are off in the world trade sphere now.
We are not being carved out. We're not being left alone.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
another
no subtitles.
Day, another Trump punch. But this time, it's us in the firing line.
Any steel coming into the United States is going to have a 25% tariff. Aluminum too, 25% for both.
Trump announcing blanket 25% steel and aluminium tariffs on
everybody.
We've been caught up in a global trade war.
The consequence, steel and aluminium will become more expensive for buyers. Demand likely to plummet.
Aluminum is also another big export that we have. I did forget about that one.
Hurt the Australian economy. We're an exporting nation.
Last year, Australia exported $640 million worth of steel and $440 million worth of aluminium to the US.
At the moment, it's not affecting most Australians directly, but when tariff wars start going up, when trade wars starts happening, consumers are the ones who always end up worse off.
Trump imposed tariffs on steel and aluminium when he was last president too. but that time
Yeah,
we
this is
managed to
not great
negotiate
for us.
our way out.
This is a test to see whether Anthony Albanese's previous remarks and Kevin Rudd's previous remarks about President Trump has done this nation harm, and I hope not.
The government's
You know who you know who's definitely not going to talk about this is the Liberal Party, because the Liberal Party is running on a platform of let's build 9 nuclear power plants all across Australia, which is going to take a lot of steel to do, actually.
scrambling to secure another exemption.
Hey, Batgaz, I just want you to know that I have been to Boston and have had a Lipton tea, like a bottle of Lipton tea that I have opened and poured into the harbor.
Have a discussion with President Trump scheduled.
While Trump agreed to pause proposed tariffs on Mexico and Canada last week.
It is either an incredible win or an embarrassing
It is
win.
an embarrassing loss. It's not a win in any way, shape, or form. We all know this. The only, concessions that Canada and Mexico made were the exact policies that they had outlined to Biden and agreed upon. So nothing new.
Trump has made good on his threat to impose an extra 10% tax on Chinese goods. So as the Trump tariff battle begins, will Trump blink?
There was no blinking.
Can we dodge the bullet?
There's going to be a reshaping of things, and it really means we have to kind of look out for ourselves.
The big question then is who's next and what's next?
Well, we're live from the lands of the Kulin Nation. Nick Bryant covered the last Trump presidency for the BBC. Lucky for Nick, it's happening all over again, and he joins us now. Nick, last time Australia dodged the tariff bullet, do you think we can do it again?
Key difference this time, Hamish. Trump is a lot tougher. He's a lot more vengeful. His love affair with tariffs is a lot more passionate.
I was going to say psychotic might have been a better word to use there.
And he's a lot more unpredictable. Another key difference, last time you had Malcolm Turnbull as Prime Minister going into battle.
If what's paused, Anubis? Are you talking about, no, the tariffs on Canada and Mexico were paused, but the concessions that Canada and Mexico gave were nothing. They said that they would do exactly the same things that they told Joe Biden that they were already going to do last year. They didn't concede anything more. It was Trump who lost. Trump who conceded. He is the one that made the concession of the 30-day, pause on the deals. On top of this, no, Trump is the one saying it to look strong. What did America get out of this at all? Because what they're doing at the same time, Canada and Mexico, is they're creating their own trade partnership outside of the U.S. that doesn't have anything to do with us, so that they could entirely go around us. They gave something behind the curtain. Like what? You're saying that they made a deal, that they gave us something. What could that possibly be? You have no evidence that they gave us anything. And yet, they wouldn't say if they gave America something, they wouldn't want to look weak. Okay, now you're just making shit up. I'm sorry, but they're not the ones looking weak here. They're the ones looking strong by saying, we'll do exactly what we said we would do last month to Joe Biden. That was what they, openly. It was everything that, yeah, exactly. This is how politics go. America's the weak one here. We're the one that gave in. We're the one that gave them something extra. Okay, we'll pause it for 30 days. They did not do anything new. Okay. Sure, you keep believing your little deluded dream with nothing to evidentiate that except for the voices in your head. You have nothing to show for it. I can show you what the actual deals were. In fact, I did show you what the deals were. I listened to their speeches as well. They're classified stuff that doesn't get talked about. Sure, the voices say so.
For you. Trump respected Turnbull. They got off to a terrible start in their first telephone call together. But after that, because Turnbull refused to be bullied by Trump, he got a lot of respect for him. Trump respected Turnbull's wealth. He respected the fact that he had a business background. He respected that he was a lawyer. As he once put it, he's the guy that kept my mate Kerry Packer out of jail. Not that there was any suggestion that Kerry Packer was ever going to end up in jail. Anthony Albanese is going to have a different relationship with Donald Trump. And
no, I just deny that anything regarding the tariffs is being classified by both countries.
That, I think, is a very key difference.
Nick, we also had an ambassador called Joe Hockey who played golf with Donald Trump this time.
Or sorry, by all 3 countries.
We got Kevin Rudd in the embassy there.
Base Kevin
He's
Rudd.
called
I love
Donald
Kevin
Trump
Rudd.
the most destructive.
We would know, because why would Mexico and Canada not say it? Why would they not say it? What, because they're going to look weak while their entire population is out the ass in support of let's tariff the fuck out of these people, let's start a trade war? No, I'm not even arguing with that. Like, you can, they look strong as it is. Anubis, if you want to argue with me, you bring facts or shut up. Like, I don't care. Genuinely, bring facts or shut the fuck up. We argue with what's based in reality and what we can read and look at in front of us. Come back in 10 minutes.
President in history. I'm not sure Donald Trump's going to be picking up the phone to Rudd.
I mean...
Yeah, I do think that is a problem. I mean, Joe Hockey, as you said, did have a very warm relationship with the Trump White House. Golf was a point of, convergence. They both love golf. Kevin Rudd, they tolerate at best, they dislike as well. And the fact that he's also called Trump a village idiot, and Trump in that famous interview with Nigel Farage, the British politician, said that he might not be around long and that he was a nasty individual. But Steve, I think
I told you guys, we're not being soft on these right-wingers anymore.
The negotiator here isn't Kevin Rudd, and I also think that that's not a reason to sort of make Rudd a sacrificial lamb. If you show weakness to Donald Trump, he exploits it. He doesn't...
Yeah, well, maybe you should tariff them back, eh? Maybe Australia should tariff America first. So here's Kevin Rudd. Sorry, not Kevin Rudd. Malcolm Turnbull.
Turnbull, welcome to 7:30.
Great to be with you.
You persuaded President Trump not to proceed with tariffs against Australia during his first...
Good. I want everyone to stop trading with America and form their own trading partnerships with everyone else in the world, Batgaz. That's the best case scenario here.
...term. Can Australia get the same deal again?
Well, I hope we can. I mean, the circumstances are similar but different. So it will depend on the advocacy of the government, the Australian government, and also, what...
The fantasy world that you people live in, I hope we can. Are you, like, if any intelligent country would be trying to crash the U.S. economy right now. Because if we don't crash the U.S. economy right now, all of those countries are at risk. I hope that the EU will show some spine to Trump. I fucking hope so.
What Trump is trying to achieve.
I have to look into that
it
in a
may
minute.
be that the tariffs he's planning to propose are going to be on every single country with no exemptions available whatsoever. So we just don't know. As with most things with Donald Trump, it's hard to predict.
Now, do you think that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has what it takes to succeed in a negotiation with Donald Trump?
Well, no, actually, I would say cancel our suborder. AUKUS is a horrible deal for Australia to begin with, but we're unable to do that. We're not that free.
Look, I don't want to run a commentary on Anthony Albanese's powers as a persuasive advocate, or Peter Dutton's for that matter. But Sarah, I know people are trying to set Albanese up to fail here, let's be honest.
They are, absolutely.
It may be that this Trump is determined to impose this tariff on every country, no matter what. And in which case, it won't be possible to secure an exemption. Oh,
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry, I can't listen to 7 minutes of this idiot talking. It's bad for Australia if we don't tariff them back, and it's bad for Australia if they drop the tariffs on us in the long term. In the short term, it's good for Australia, but these people never think in the long term. So Canada, while the target of Canadian steel and aluminum is completely baseless and unwarranted, we must retaliate immediately. We are urging and demanding that the government of Canada act again with resolve and purpose to combat this threat, ensure that any measure taken against our sector is met with retaliatory measures and action to offset the devastating impact tariffs would make on our sector and our workers, which is based, by the way. Now, on top of that, I do want to say that the Buy Canadian movement in Canada is doing great. I mean, they are not even remotely struggling without buying U.S. goods, without the tariffs have even being imposed yet.
Canadian movement has become a huge force in the last week alone, changing how and where people shop.
A vast amount of people are only purchasing made-in-Canada products.
Grocery store owners like Marilyn Dibb are astounded by just how quickly Canadians have dumped American products in the wake of President Donald Trump's tariff threats.
They are completely boycotting the American-made product.
And at the Canada-US border, officials are reporting a huge drop in southbound traffic at some ports of entry. In Blaine, Washington, near Vancouver, wait times were just 5 minutes, down from the usual 19 minutes on a Sunday, let alone Super Bowl Sunday.
That's a pretty dramatic drop off in the amount of time that it's been. Remember, it's only been about a week.
All of that has some U.S. lawmakers furious with the president.
It unnecessarily harms a relationship with Canada that's been such a good relationship.
Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear says Canadian demand for bourbon has dropped off in the wake of Trump's aggression.
Most Americans didn't vote for the president on these issues. They don't view Canada in the way that he does.
Neighboring Illinois does big business with Canada too. It sent 30
Fuck Kentucky. Hell yeah, SN. Lord Fluffy Art, how likely am I to be lynched if I move to Canada? Not likely at all. The Canadians know that the majority of Americans didn't vote for this. Like, if you are trying to leave Canada, they're not gonna lynch you for that.
$1 billion worth of goods north last year. A lot of it was food. Trump's put that in jeopardy, says this congresswoman.
Back as the UK is not kicking our planes out of the UK. Sorry, not sorry, but you guys are also a U.S. colony.
Just making it that much more difficult for our farmers to keep their heads above water. It's very serious.
Minister Anita Anand is working with the provinces to quickly dismantle decades-old trade barriers between provinces to help the economy along if Trump delivers a blow.
Which also shows long-term planning that once Canada gets going, they're out of the U.S. market. Like, they're not coming back. Not for a while, at the very least.
Nina Anand is working with the provinces to quickly dismantle decades-old trade barriers between provinces to help the economy along if Trump delivers a blow.
Joe Blow, I find it funny how people think that Trump acts in the U.S.'s best interest. He's not. He's not only not loyal or patriotic to the U.S., so anything that hurts the U.S. is of no concern to Trump. Of course not. And, like, the only people who even remotely think that he works in the U.S.'s best interest are the right wing and the, like, wealthy media class. That's it. And honestly, even the secondary, probably not. They almost certainly know better. And the right wing only thinks this because they just believe what they see on Fox News and what they hear off of grifters on Twitter. So I think Trump was horribly miscalculated without realizing he is isolated. Nope, no. You're already, like, off to a bad start. But miscalculated without realizing it. He is so isolated and believes a lot of this propaganda. We have been on a razor's edge for a while now. He thought some short-term pain, then back to normal trade, but this could be a trade shift off of generational proportions. Deals that go and never come back. The problem with the bull in the china shop, people might throw out the china shards and not repair it. That's the goal, Coherent Scream. That's the whole point. They want that. They just, like, they're not open about it. But none of this is about miscalculation. This is the calculation. It is isolate the world and push every other, like, trading partner away so that we can then claim that they started whatever once we start to invade them with the hope of annexing them, but also because isolating the country provides the type of environment necessary to radicalize the population of the country. Yeah, look, it's kind of on purpose. Trump was fine being the front man for the architects of Project 2025 and related as long as he gets money, he doesn't give a rat's ass about anything else. Basically, yeah.
Canada needs to become more self-sufficient, whatever the president does in the end, she says.
Every one of us wants Canada to remain strong and free, and we are prepared to do whatever it takes to ensure that occurs.
Same, Captain,
some Canadians
except I'm not sure NATO would win that fight yet. They might need to, you guys might need to step up military production in Europe over there.
Soured on the U.S., and Trump's latest threat to impose steel and aluminum tariffs won't help. The country's 13 premiers are headed to Washington this week, though, to smooth things over, part of a diplomatic push to get Trump to drop the tariffs for good.
And while the premiers have said they're committed to Team Canada, some still have demands for the federal government.
Canada might come back if we can get rid of the fascists, Lord Fluffy Art. Yes, they're going to get hurt. Not a shit ton. They're going to get hurt, but they are currently creating new trade networks outside of the U.S. Like, at the very least, with Mexico as a direct trading partner to jump over the U.S. and not need to work through that. Because a lot of the stuff that that Canada imports from the U.S., they can also import from Mexico. And a lot of the stuff that Mexico might need, they could also import from Canada. This will, realistically, this just shifts the global economy away from the US, not actually harming any of the countries that are being targeted by these tariffs, aside from us, because they'll all still have other people to trade with. The number of trading partners we have is dropping drastically. South America as a whole is also developing new trade relationships. And yeah, right now, America could invade the entire world and win if we wanted to, assuming that our troops are not conscriptees.
Yeah, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith is demanding Ottawa appoint the fentanyl czar right away. Last week, the Prime Minister promised Trump he'd get one in place.
By the way, that fentanyl czar, it's not even a new role that they created. They just changed the name of the guy whose job that already was to be fentanyl czar, to get Trump to shut the fuck up. That was the one concession Trump got, is Canada changed the name of one of its officials' job titles. That's it. If Canada and Mexico announce extended super trade deal and fund a fleet of trading ships, that would be an eye-opener. Well, they already announced that they are working on that. That's what, they're currently building that. So yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Help crack down on the deadly drug. That hasn't happened yet, and Smith is not happy about it. Ontario's Doug Ford is also concerned. He wants the czar named now to show the Americans that Canada is taking Trump's concerns seriously. Ian?
JP Tasker in Ottawa.
Now, beyond this, though, beyond just the Buy Canadian movement, which is excellent, 10 out of 10, excellent, love to see it, we have Macron in Europe.
Environment, given all the challenges we have to fix Ukraine, we have the situation in Middle East, we have this competition between US and China, and we have all this innovation from AI to clean tech as well to deliver. Honestly, I don't think it should be the top priority. Nevertheless, what is the concern of President Trump? And you know that we have a very good relation and we speak very regularly. He says, I'm not happy with the situation with Europe.
I mean, one or the other, Lord Fluffy Art. Right now, I'd rather be, I'd rather China be the hegemon. They're less evil than we are. They are committing less war crimes and genocide than we're planning to. Openly planning to.
Because I have a trade deficit. When you look at the situation, my first question to the US, is the European Union your first problem? No, I don't think so. Your first problem is China. So you should focus on the first problem. Second, Europe is an ally for you. If you want Europe to be engaged on this more investment on security and defense, if you want Europe to develop, which is, I think, the interest of the US, you should not hurt the European economies by threatening it with tariffs. I think it's not the top priority.
Yeah, that's the other thing. As you said, Coherent Scream, we don't have the people power for something like that. Not yet. We're going to do this through conscription. If you haven't seen my video on classrooms to conscription, for example, we're already in the process of laying out how that's going to happen. America fascists have a habit of falling short of their goals and implementing baby fascism where China actually implements fascism. That's only in the past, Lord Fluffy Art. The American fascists have never had this strong of a hold before. The capital class is more consolidated than it ever has been in the United States' history. The entirety of the right is in favor of war crimes and genocide, happily. And the rest of America is just kind of tuned out. So I'm not all that hopeful of us avoiding the fascism from reaching its peak, not without significant blowback from the American citizens. So on top of this, we also have new tariffs placed on China, as well as the aluminum and steel imports from China coming in. We also have the new tariffs placed on us from China. Oh, got a new chest. Oh, got a new chest. Hey, I didn't ask you to make sound. Bring the cat? Sure. Yeah, sleepy boy. Hey, sleepy boy. You know, we're going to be talking a bit about FDR today, so, you know, good timing. And, no, seriously, I know you don't like China, and neither do I, but when I say good luck China, I mean actual good luck China. What does the fluff ball think of the heat? He doesn't seem to like it. He tends to lay down on the bathroom tiles when it gets, in the middle of the day, because it's the coolest part of the house. What's funny about Trump's tariffs is I don't even hear him phrasing it in terms of protecting American industry. It's always about a punitive shiz. Yeah, because it doesn't protect American industry. It doesn't. It's not helpful to the United States in any way, shape, or form. Now, here's China's new tariffs.
But I'm keen to get your thoughts on these tariffs as well, what you're hearing from local businesses there. I've just seen a report out from Reuters down the road in Iwu. It seems like the folks over there, it's sort of the Christmas town, seem to be better prepared this time around. What are you hearing? I mean, is this all going to be dependent on a phone call between Trump and Xi? I mean, how much hope do people have for that?
Well, I think it's fascinating that, this supposed conversation that's going to take place between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? And ultimately, is Xi Jinping right now...
If California secedes, California gets invaded, Captain.
...now is essentially the only real leader globally, either in the private or in the public domain, that has not so-called kissed the ring. And I think the Chinese are just extremely
not necessarily, Art, but probably.
The Trump administration
it's possible that the economy of California wouldn't crash, but it is pretty likely that it would. So, you're right, but it's not impossible. There would just need to be some sort of a some sort of stuff put in place to avoid that. There would need to be trading relationships with other countries, for example, specifically Canada and Mexico, developed beforehand and put on paper. But, also, they would just get invaded. So.
To put through in terms of tariffs. They've had 4 years. This is not 2017. There has been an enormous amount of preparation done to try and get ahead of whatever tariffs were going to be put into place, whether it was cost cutting, what have you. But keep in mind, China has the upper hand this time. And I think this has not been properly appreciated because essentially, and to put it quite bluntly, America produces virtually nothing. China produces virtually everything. And
only because they would make those states dead by force, Joe Blow.
I think China going through and being very cautious in how it, announced.
Zote, I know that is a thing that would happen, and yes, that is what they want to do. They want manufacturers to come to the States and manufacture in the United States, but this will also increase the cost of goods. This will also require an increase in wages to make these goods affordable, which they will not be providing to the American public because the corporations are the ones running this government. They're the ones that are literally, they did all of this. This entire administration's point is so they have to pay workers less and so that they could steal from workers more. So why would they ever raise wages? Especially to a degree that would be equivalent to the increase in prices that would come from manufacturing goods in the United States instead of in places like Mexico.
Whatever retaliatory efforts are going to be made are very tactical. and I think very smart, going after Google, going after Apple, going after rare earth minerals, if you will. I mean, there are numerous areas where China can...
They are heading us right where it hurts.
To inflict pain.
So right now we got 15% tariff on U.S. coal, liquefied natural gas, 10% on U.S. crude, farm equipment, and automobiles, export controls on metals to the U.S., probe into Google, and blacklisting more
Case in point
more U.S.
would be
companies.
On the medical industry, things like antibiotics. But we haven't seen any of that yet. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out.
Honestly, that's not an unlikely future, Shufel Poofer. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say unlikely, but impossible. It's not an impossible future.
Meanwhile, China has just imposed new tariffs on select U.S. goods. Now, this is in retaliation to 10% duties by the U.S. on all Chinese goods that came into effect last Monday. That was the day after President Trump delayed tariffs on Canada and Mexico. CBC's Linda Ward.
Take a look around you in your house right now and think about how much things, like how much do we use of anything that they could be tariffing. The things that are on this list right now are, from our end, steel and aluminum. They will retaliate with... China's been weird in that they haven't just been dropping these same tariffs in retaliation as well as others on top of it, which I suppose maybe they just don't need to, doesn't matter. But the tariffs on natural gas, coal, and oil exports hurt us more than they hurt them. The car export tariff doesn't really hurt China or us all that much. Like we don't produce all that many cars in the United States, especially none that go to China anymore. But on top of this, the probe into Google, for example, threatening tech companies, that's a pretty big step. Brazil also. Lula, being the based leader that he is, has said that he will consider tariffing U.S. tech companies in response to being tariffed by the United States. Now, that would definitely hit us where it hurts. Remember, Lula is the only one so far who's gotten a win over President Musk in shutting down Twitter in Brazil. Well, sorry to say California would die of dehydration. Cali has water problems. Yeah.
Joins us now in studio, and she's following that part of the story. So tell us a bit more of these Chinese tariffs.
Yeah, so unlike the 10% duties that Trump issued on all Chinese imports last week, these are specifically targeted at some very specific imports coming from the United States. 15% on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas, and 10% for crude oil and farm equipment and big engine cars. Chinese policy makers not as successful as Canada and Mexico were in trying to get Trump to walk back these tariffs.
If there's any behind the scenes talk, it's with China. So, like, coherent scream, I can see that. If there's any behind the scenes dealing around the tariffs, it would be with China. Because China owns us. They own Elon Musk, and Elon's the guy who owns Trump.
Last week,
like, really, you guys should stop producing almonds. Genuinely. Just stop growing almonds. We don't need any more. We have enough.
China's foreign affairs spokesperson said earlier this week they had no choice but to fight back.
The United States has imposed a 10% tariff on Chinese goods on the grounds of the fentanyl issue. China is strongly dissatisfied with this and firmly opposes it. The measures China has taken are necessary to safeguard its legitimate rights and interests.
And Trump, as we know it, has not had a conversation yet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The White House said that one has not been scheduled. Trump has said that even higher tariffs could be coming if there's no stop to the fentanyl.
So much more than water has to, than almonds have to go to. Like, alfalfa is another thing that we need to stop growing, especially in fucking California.
Into the United States, China, for their part, has issued a complaint to the World Trade Organization.
Well, fuck those politicians, Joe Blow. That's kind of the entire problem, isn't it? Is those guys all need to go, and they're the ones that are in power everywhere.
Okay, so we saw the effect of the trade war on global supply chains and the global economy during the Trump first administration. So what effects are these retaliatory tariffs going to have?
Well, these are more limited and they are very, very targeted. And I want to break that down into just the specifics here of what we're talking about and the effect for the United States. When we look at manufacturing in particular, the Brookings Institution has done some...
Trump just wants them to say that they're cracking down on fentanyl producers. They're obviously not, but like, yes. And also, I'm pretty sure that the U.S. doesn't really have too much of an interest in tackling the fentanyl issue anyway. Like, if we cared at all, then we would have. It's like, even Mexico's president laid out 6 or 7 different things that we could be doing in her response to the 30-day pause on tariffs. You can grow alfalfa in your kitchen. Let's have Cali have let Cali have their aqua. Yeah.
Good work on this, saying there are about 400 to 700,000 U.S. jobs that could be affected by these retaliatory tariffs, specifically jobs in more industrial states like North Dakota, Indiana, Ohio, states that voted for Donald Trump, states where
Who cares about fentanyl? Lace the fucking school lunches with that bitch to get the kids started on it early. Honestly, I could see a pharmaceutical company rep saying that. I find it curious how no one's talking, no talking heads are talking about how Trump folded last week and might do that again. It's almost like they're avoiding even mentioning that, getting marching orders to, quote, chat about how bad trade could be. They literally are. They're suing all of these different media companies for like any minor misstep. It is the place of the media in fascism to do what the fascists want, and if the fascists don't get what they want, the media get replaced. These people want to keep their jobs, and they find it easier to spout fascist propaganda at you than they do to, I don't know, in any way resist, in any way risk themselves. Fold as in the 30-day suspension of tariffs with Mexico and Canada. Also, that was what the reference was to. What's up, leftist Leo? But like, yeah, even that, like, that didn't apply to China either. Coherent scream. Like, the Chinese tariffs were not paused. They're in effect right now.
Manufacturing is very big. When we look at coal, the U.S. doesn't export a large amount of coal, but nearly half of what they do comes from West Virginia. Local coal miners could be affected there. And we look at oil. The U.S. is a relatively small source of crude oil for China. It accounted for...
Yeah, that's because we buy crude and then we refine it and then sell that. And also, we are the largest producer of oil and natural gas in the world. So thanks, CBC, for pretending like that's not the case.
Only 1.7% of total imports last year worth
It's not that he changes his mind, Shufelpoofer. What happened, the reason we had that 30-day pause is because Trump expected them to back down. He played chicken with China and Mexico and he lost. Because they were prepared for him to either back down or... I find it hard to... Oh, sorry, never mind. That was to Coherent Scream. You just popped up and the color was the same on my chat. The concessions came from Trump because he was expecting them to back down, not for them to continue onward in applying retaliatory tariffs back and not to be forming an international trade agreement outside of the United States' orbit. That's why. But Shufelpoofer, I find it hard to believe that mainstream media doesn't have the money to deal with lawsuits even from the government. I think it's more the execs are just on the same side. Well, it is that, and it's also like you don't need, like the money's not the issue, right? It's more they don't want the entire network to be taken down after being, I don't know, after Trump says something along the lines of, oh, well, CBS is a terrorist organization. We're shutting them down. Like that's... And that is one fear. But yes, the executives are absolutely on the same side because the executives are the ones making money. This entire administration functions solely for the benefit of executives. So you're right as well. Oof, leftist Leo. It's okay. Go do your class stuff and be smart so that you don't have to keep doing class stuff. At the very least, be smarter than Republicans. And he caved, which is what he always does when somebody actually stands up to him. Plus, Stephen Miller made a comment to the Wall Street Journal, noted about how they might have fucked up what was already in place with Mexico last year. I don't remember seeing that, but like, of course they fucked up what they were already planning to do with Mexico last year. Fascists have no ability to govern well. Like, every fascist dictatorship in history has failed at governing.
$6 billion. So the U.S. could then redirect that oil to other markets. So it's not really a huge impact expected there. Still, global management professor at Toronto Metropolitan University, Soy says any conflict between these two global trading giants is going to have a big impact.
That is, escalation lead to prolonged uncertainty in global trade. And
Partisansky, like, find me a fascist who was the leader of any country who didn't fuck up that country.
Export controls by China on critical minerals could disrupt global supply chain for industries like electronics, renewable energy, and automobile manufacturing. All this has indirect impact on Canadian business as consumers.
But all things are not equal here. An economist estimate China's tariffs apply to about $20 billion worth of U.S. goods. U.S. tariffs apply to about $450 billion worth of Chinese goods. This is meant really to send a message to the United States, and it's clear that this isn't going to stop.
Now remember, if all of these goods are going up in price and Americans need to be able to pay for them, right? Then we need consumer protections, for example. We need higher wages. Are we getting any of those? Well, we're definitely not getting the wages, and this is what happens to your consumer protections. Wait, is that the CFP? Yeah, okay, the CFPB, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Erdogan made a light win today.
What you have here is the richest man on the planet
Gengar?
bragging about destroying an agency that is set up to protect ordinary consumers from rich scammers like himself and his friends. He says CFPB RIP. CFPB is the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It is set up to do all sorts of things, but basically it's the anti-scam agency. It's returned $20 billion to about 200 million consumers, regular people, protects them from things like bank fraud, was working to make it so that medical debt...
Yes, and they are going to price gouge and mask it as covering the cost of tariffs, absolutely.
...would not impact your credit rating. And now he, the richest man on the planet, is delighted by the idea of destroying this agency, which was set up to actually benefit you.
Same, adored Gengar. Although I hope your struggling does not continue on for too much longer. As in, like, I hope that your day gets better, not that you lose your job. Could mean one or both, really. It could mean either or, so I had to really clarify. Now, moving on to a somewhat related topic. Federal judge ordered Doge to completely destroy all records that they've already collected, including erasing all of the data on the private servers and the private hard drives. Now, whether any of this is going to happen, we'll see. It's really a good test to see whether the courts can rein in Elon Musk, which I highly doubt that they can. Let's be real here. But at the very least, we now have a court order saying that they need to do this. Burn the evidence, because apparently what they were doing was so egregiously illegal that even the courts had to step in. True. Now, J.D. Vance has some thoughts on this. Quote, if a judge tried to tell a general how to conduct a military operation, that would be illegal. If a judge tried to command the attorney general in how to use her discretion as a prosecutor, that would also be illegal. Judges aren't allowed to control the executive's legitimate power. This is blatantly untrue. like objectively untrue. Well, for one, Nathan J. Robinson saying, they didn't teach us that in Yale Law School, but one thing I do remember is that it is actually part of their job that when the executive branch violates the law, the judiciary is fully entitled and obligated to command the executive branch to behave legally. But take this a step further, Elon Musk, not the president, not legally, you know, he is functionally. He has made his decision, now let him enforce it. Exactly, Lord Fluffy Art. I think it is the bane on existence, but at least on social media. Now, the defense that Elon Musk put forward for why he should be able to keep these files and keep access to them is actually kind of funny and pathetic. It is that they only had read-only access to these systems. Now, we can read a whole thread from a tech insider over why that means literally nothing, but I feel like maybe even if you aren't super techie, you can understand why having read-only access, which we don't know for a fact, there's no, you know, proof of that, on classified information, your personal records include, like, yours and everyone else's in the country, including your voting history, your voting registration, your address, your IP number, your tax history, your bank history, like literally everything they possibly have, does not really make anything better. For one, with read-only access, you can still search for people who might, I don't know, fall into certain keywords to go look at dissidents to hunt after. For example, who is most likely, let's say, who are Twitch streamers that are making money off of Twitter and make leftist content. Let's see, there's one, there's another, You jot those down. These are now people that your secret police are going to go after, for example. Secondly, this data can still be fed into an AI for training data, which is the point, by the way, in that you can read, but you can still copy this information down. Like, there's nothing here that prevents this read-only access from being abused. It means nothing. Also, Elon is now openly, like, admitting that it's a coup. Mike Lee, this has the feeling of a coup, not a military coup, but a judicial one. Yes. Now, if you didn't know, cooing the federal government is actually illegal, you know? I know that we pretend like, you know, it's all fine, like it's not actually illegal considering they tried to do a coup 4 years ago, but auto coup, yeah, basically. Shocked, I say. How could this ever happen? You know what I'm actually shocked about? Blackwater militia members blocking Congress from federal buildings. We have private security that has been contracted not by the federal government, but by a private military contractor who is also illegally holding private information of the American government and of the American citizen in ransom, is hiring private, like, mercenaries, private security, to stop elected officials from entering government buildings. It's so fucking illegal that illegal doesn't mean anything anymore. And DHS has been at the federal buildings too. Yeah. Like, there is no justification for this, right? Like, unless it is the government paying for spending this money, explaining why and justifying, maybe, like, even then it's a stretch, but that's one thing. We've had none of that. They just need to keep walking and take this to court. Yes, push them out of the way. I am an elected official and you are a mercenary. Get the fuck out of my face. Like, who the fuck are you? That's the way you need to be responding. I'm like, but except look at the people standing in front of him. They're geriatrics. What are they going to do? They can't push him out of the way. This, like, short king over here can't be pushed out of the way by these geriatrics. Like, no way. No way. And to be fair, even if they could push him, they wouldn't, considering the entire Democratic Party is so obsessed with civility politics that they're willing to let the country die and the Constitution be burned in front of them just to not raise their voice. They need to get pushed, get arrested, expose it all. Yes! You're literally like an elected official. If you need to get arrested to do your job, then do your fucking job. I don't care if you get killed. It's your job. It is like, that's why the hell are we paying you? Why the hell are we electing you if you're not willing to get hurt and die for your country as an elected official? When you're not the one doing something illegal, might I add. You know who is doing illegal shit? Everyone else on the Republican side. Donald Trump threatening the Department of Transportation and threatening New York's funding if they don't get rid of this congestion pricing in Manhattan. Now, if you don't remember, you weren't here, we talked about this a little while ago. New York City put in place congestion pricing, which is basically it's a tax on driving past a certain part of the city in certain times of the day, or really just driving in a certain part of New York City. Now, if you've never been to Manhattan and you're wondering about this, most people don't drive in downtown Manhattan unless they are wealthy, unless they are part of, let's say, like a logistics company who's making a delivery, who, by the way, at that point is being reimbursed for that toll money. Or you're wealthy enough that you live downtown or you work downtown and you have a car that you can park in the city, which again is quite expensive to do, especially for longer than even just an hour. These people can afford the $7 the congestion pricing is. And you might hate it, but I think it's based as fuck, Go Here and Scream. I think that it should be implemented in the downtown area of every single major city. And yeah, if you drive in New York, you're not, like, you're insane a little bit. The subways and the buses are excellent in New York in that, yes, they might look dingy, but they are generally constantly running and are often very much not late. Like, I took the subway for an entire year during like university, because I went to school in downtown and I had to cross from New Jersey to get to school downtown, and I was never late. Subways and buses are the bomb in New York. Yeah. The people who complain about the buses and the subways are people who don't ride the buses and the subways. Could they be better? Yeah. Are they excellent? Yeah. Now, the Democratic governor, Kathy Hochul, had spoken with Republican president several times in recent weeks about the tolls, which are meant to raise $1 billion in bond for $1 billion to bond for $15 billion in money to fix the region's dilapidated mass transit infrastructure. On top of that, as we said, not only are the buses and the subway system excellent, but they could be better. The congestion pricing is in place so that we can make them better. Nope, we cannot, Lord Fluffy Art. Not anytime soon. Sorry, I said it was $7. It's the $9. Trump told the New York Post that the $9 tolls have been destructive for the city. How? New Jersey to New York tolls is $18.70 plus congestion $9 is fucked. Yeah, but again, how many times, like, how often are you driving into New York City from New Jersey with a car, might I add? Like, across, what, the 1870, is that, what, George Washington Bridge and Lincoln Tunnel? Because the only people regularly using the George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel to cross into New York and going downtown far enough to pay that congestion pricing is a rich people, or was like United Arab Republic, I thought. What, like, there's different acronyms that mean different things, you know? But like, regardless, if you're paying those tolls, then you are either a rich person driving into the city, or your job is to do this. And if it's your job to do it, then that gets calculated as part of your payment anyway. Lots of people cross the GWB to cross into lower Westchester and the Bronx. That's true, but you don't need to pay the congestion pricing if you don't go downtown. Just go on the FDR, go on, like, there are other ways to get around that. It's not just going past a certain part of downtown. It's going into downtown that requires you to pay. You don't have to pay that if you're on the highways. Regardless, like, this is stupid and also blatantly, like, this is the federal government going against states' rights to try and forcibly institute its own views on states. Like, it is exactly what Republicans have complained about for a decade at the very least. In fact, likely 100 years, Republicans have been complaining about this shit. This is just breaking down any barrier between the state and the federal government. And then on top of this, we're still talking about annexing partners and closest allies. It is also in, like, this is not only our closest trading partner, but has been one of the longest running allies in American history. But no, you know what? We're just going to invade and annex them.
You know, the Prime Minister said this weekend to a group of Canadian businessmen, he was at a private meeting, he said that your wish for Canada to be the 51st state is a, quote, real thing. Is it a real thing?
Yeah, it is. I think Canada would be much better off being a 51st state because we lose $200 billion a year with Canada, and I'm not going to let that happen. It's too much. Why are we paying $200 billion a year, essentially in subsidy to Canada? Now, if they're a 51st state, I don't mind doing it.
You know, the Prime Minister said this weekend.
Those tolls pay for a lot, though, Jan and Alex, and residents of New Jersey, or especially residents of New Jersey that travel into New York City, not by bus, you know, because again, you don't need to drive into the city to get into the city. And if you're paying that toll to get to like Bronx or Westchester, like you're going to pay that toll regardless. But that's not the congestion pricing. That's the toll for the bridges and the tunnels. And those bridges and tunnel tolls, A, pay for maintenance of the bridges and the tunnels, but B, go into the city. Those tolls are not a bad thing. So, yeah, we're going to invade Canada. Lovely.
Canada in a closed-door meeting with business leaders. Outgoing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau warned that President Trump is serious about annexing Canada to make it the 51st state. Is he right? Is President Trump serious about planning to annex Canada?
If you can afford a car on top of rent in New York, and don't forget to add in parking, because not everywhere in New York City will you have parking available to you that you don't have to pay for.
Look, I think the Canadian people many of them would love to join the United States with no tariffs, with lower taxes, and I have all kinds of neighbors down in Florida that are Canadians that are escaping many of the liberal policies and have moved in. But look, what we're talking about
yes
here
or
is
no? First of all, I think some
American
Canadians would disagree with you.
in the Western Hemisphere.
I think some Canadians would disagree with you, but just yes or no, is he planning to annex
part
Canada?
Of his policy. Well, I don't think there's any plans to invade Canada, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, actually, there is the plans of economic pressure to get Canada to be a 51st state, but if we don't succeed with the economic pressure, what comes next? Now, Trump has said that he doesn't plan to use military pressure, and he said that he didn't rule it out for Greenland, but do you really think that if it came down to it, with how often Canada keeps coming up, and how, like, much we actually, like, if America wants to do its long-term Hitlerite imperialism, then we need Canada. We need Canada's resources, like water, for example, fresh water, as well as rare earth minerals, wood, lumber, or whatever. We need those resources. We want Canada. He's not lying when he says this shit. It's time for an armed global socialist revolution. Well, I mean, once everyone else starts it, then I'll say that. Otherwise, it's just Fed posting.
About, but there is a lot of people that like what we have in the United States and do not like the last 10 years of liberal progressive governance in Trudeau. But really what you're seeing is a reassertion of American leadership in the
The people who watch Fox News, that's the people. But in Canada, no less.
Western Hemisphere, from the Arctic all the way down to the Panama Canal. And that's what...
I wonder if we're talking about the Arctic down to the Panama Canal, are we talking about imperialism? Are we talking about colonialism? Yes, and yes.
We're talking about from Greenland to Arctic security to the Panama Canal coming back under the United States. America has avoided our own hemisphere where we have the energy, the food, and the critical minerals for way too long. And you're seeing a reassertion of President Trump's leadership.
The New York Post is reporting.
Excuse me, did you say that we have the food, the energy, and the critical minerals? Considering the energy we buy from other countries. Now, we produce plenty of oil and natural gas, but we buy plenty from other countries, including Canada, might I add again. 70% of crude oil imports come from Canada. But also, Trump is begging OPEC right now to increase production because American companies don't trust him enough to start drilling, because they know that he likes the Saudis better, and if they start drilling, the Saudis will too, and then it will drop the price of oil per barrel. Secondly, food. Motherfucker, we get most of our food from Mexico. Like, they're just so happy to blatantly lie to you. And even like NBC, like, they're not going to correct him. They're not.
Avoided our own hemisphere where we have the energy, the food, and the critical minerals for way too long.
I mean, based the Kazakh enigma. Technically, so do I to an extent, but that's a whole other thing. So, I want to talk about the last time the wealthy tried to coup the United States and install a fascist government in power, because believe it or not, this has happened before. Now, last time they didn't succeed; it was a failed coup, but it did happen. He's too stupid to realize that flooding the market won't bring prices down. Are they? Like, I still think that they're trying to crash the economy on purpose, just like not in the same way that I want the economy to crash. They want the economy to crash just enough that they can go in and buy, like the venture capitalists, the billionaire class, go in and buy all the stocks of all of the companies that are collapsing on the cheap, and to solidify and monopolize their hold on their industries. Now, I want the US economy to collapse in its entirety so that Hitler can't afford to build tanks and planes for his future war and bombs. We get a lot of food from Cali, but also tons from Mexico. Cali does produce epic levels of food, yes, but not enough for Americans to live on without Mexico. Like, we don't produce enough food in the US to cut out all food imports. Not right now. Big Oil is pushing back on glutting the market because it would affect their pricing per barrel, and they don't they're gonna make money one way or another. The fossil fuel industry is also a part of this. They're just not a part of certain bits of it. They're not in favor of every bit of it. They're more in favor of other bit. They want a fake crash, a 2008 crash. They don't want a Great Depression, which, if you aren't aware, the things that preceded the Great Depression, or involved in the Great Depression, were things like tariffs, high inflation, which is not currently a factor, but will be very soon, as well as trade wars and banking insecurity. Now, I wonder if, when we're talking about making the IRS a private institution, the ERS, maybe getting rid of the FDIC like we know that they are. We know that Jesse Waters, Charlie Kirk, all of them, they're talking about this kind of stuff. If the FDIC is going to disappear, I wonder if the banking instability could lead to a bank run, which, combined with tariffs and inflation that will be coming very, very soon, could cause, I don't know, something like a Great Depression. Although if Europe and other countries stray from the US in trade, it may not work out so well. Well, I think if the rest of the world stops trading with America, this is the best case scenario. Might it hurt all of these other countries in the short term to, like, economically? Yes. Will it hurt much less than American tanks rolling through their streets? Yes. All right, I'll be right back, and then we're going to talk about the business plot. I want it to hurt the US. We are now anti-America on this channel. Give me another second. I gotta go replace the bowl of ice that was sitting in front of my fan, trying to blow cold air into this room. Another bowl. Sounds like a joke, but that's how this room is staying cool, is with bowls of ice in front of fans right now. The Great Depression was worldwide, but it was a lot worse outside of the USA. Well, yeah, and crashing our economy in the wrong way would crash everyone else's economy too, which is what I mean. Why it is beneficial for all of these countries to stop trading with us now and to crash the US economy, not have them crash the world economy. Joe Blow, there is a surplus of food that agencies like USAID will pay subsidies to Midwest farmers that will go to third world countries as a soft power tactic to gain influence. So America does have the food surplus. Well, especially now that we got rid of USAID. But at the same time, a lot of the things that we grow in, especially the Midwest, are feed for animals, like the corn and the rice, and not the rice rather, but the corn and the wheat and stuff like that, that goes into feeding livestock, which we then kill and use as food. But that also requires quite a lot of water. I love how you think that Republicans are pro-America, Anubis. Donald Trump is more China first than America first. I'm more America first than Donald Trump. I'm not America first. Rice is from Cali, one of the world's largest producers, I think. I think so. Something like that. So, the business plot. The first time we had the wealthy try and install a fascist dictatorship in the United States and overthrow an elected Democrat in the time being.
Of powerful elites plotting to overthrow the government. Hey man, that's not cool. All because they feared losing their vast fortunes during a time of
MAGA should just be disgraced.
Economic crisis. In this video, we delve into a little-known event called the business plot, where titans of banking and business contemplated installing a dictator to protect their interests. Join us as we explore the eerie parallels between this covert scheme and recent events.
Remember how, remember when that was the worst we've got from it?
That unfolded at the U.S. Capitol.
Absolutely, people are angry, and you can feel it.
I wish it just ended there.
The rage, the madness.
Get ready
as we uncover the AI voice. It's fine.
The truth about the business plot and its striking similarities to the present day. We're gonna read quite a
lot more on it than listen to it anyway. I just want you guys to get like a little basic rundown.
In April 1933, titans of banking and business were worried that if Franklin D. Roosevelt became president, he would remove the gold standard and inflation could skyrocket, making their millions worthless.
Our dollar is now altogether too much influenced by the internal policies of other nations. Therefore, the United States must take firmly in its own hands
we do, Coherent Stream.
the control of the gold value of our dollar. And as a further effective means to that end, I am going to establish a government market for gold.
I missed this accent, by the way. Whatever happened to this accent? I want it back.
In the United States.
The anxiety amongst the elites had been growing in the months between Franklin D. Roosevelt's election and his inauguration, but his elimination of the gold standard infuriated some of the country's wealthiest men. They needed to remove him, but they also needed someone to be the poster child of this operation. And who better than Smedley D. Butler was a highly decorated...
The best name ever created by America.
Marine Corps general who had received the Medal of Honor
You should do it all the time then, Lord Fluffy Art.
twice. He was beloved by his men before his retirement, and more so afterward when he spoke in support of the
I
Army.
think it's called an Atlantic accent, Joe Blow.
Fight for early bonus payments for service during World War I. Given his opposition to fascism, Butler might not have seemed like a good fit for the job of coup leader, but his support from veterans was more important to the Wall Street plotters. At the time, there were many more veterans.
This video is pissing me off. Can't do it. Let's read. Let's start off with Smedley Darlington Butler, one of the best names that I've ever heard. So Smedley Butler was a United States Marine Corps officer and writer during his 34-year military career. He fought in the Philippine-American War, the Boxer Rebellion, and the Mexican Revolution, World War I. Shit, sorry. By the way, if you guys start hearing outside noises, let me know and I'll shut the window. I just want more cold air in here as much as I possibly can. As well as the Banana Wars. At the time of his death, Butler was the most decorated Marine in U.S. military history, and by the end of his career, Butler had received 16 medals, including 5 for heroism. He is the only Marine to have been awarded the Marine Corps Brevet Medal, as well as 2 Medals of Honor, all for separate actions. I still haven't seen Has Been Hotel, Lord Fluffy Art. Sorry, I haven't had time to watch much TV, really. In 1933, Butler became involved in a controversy known as the business plot, when he told a United States Congressional Committee that a group of wealthy American industrialists were planning a coup d'etat to overthrow Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Butler also claimed that the plotters of the alleged coup intended on using Butler at the head of a group of veterans to place the federal government under arrest. These individuals were alleged to have been involved in the coup, denied all existence of such plot, and the media ridiculed Butler's allegations. But a final report, following an investigation by a special House of Representatives committee, confirmed at least some of his testimony. This entire story is wild, and the least surprising bit of it is that the mainstream media of the day tried to, I don't know, push this over to the side, oh, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. This is a gigantic hoax. This is a witch hunt. This is bullshit. Of course they did. So after retiring from the Marine Corps, Butler became an outspoken critic of American foreign policy and military intervention, which he saw as being driven primarily by U.S. business interests, which is true, and it's always been true. In 1935, Butler wrote the book War is a Racket, where he argued that imperialist motivations had been the cause behind several American interventions, many of which he personally participated in. Butler also became an advocate for populist politics, speaking at meetings organized by veterans, pacifists, and church groups till his death in 1940. So, what are some of the things that Smedley Butler did? Well, as part of his military career, in the Spanish War fervor of 1898, Butler lied about his age to receive a direct commission as a Marine second lieutenant. He trained at the Marine Barracks in Washington, D.C., and in July of 1898, he went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, arriving shortly after its invasion and capture. Dude being full-on Captain America. Let's lie to the government so I can go off to war quicker. His company soon returned to the U.S., and after a short break, he was assigned to the armored cruiser, the USS New York, for 4 months. He came home to be mustered out of service in February of 1899, but on April 8th, 1899, he accepted a commission as first lieutenant in the Marine Corps. Fought in the Philippine-American War, Marine Corps sent him to Manila. In October of 1899, saw first combat where he led 300 Marines to take the town of Noveleta from the Filipino troops in the new Philippine Republic. In the initial moments of the assault, his first sergeant was wounded. Butler briefly panicked and then quickly regained his composure, led his Marines in pursuit of the fleeing enemy. By noon, the Marines had dispersed of the native defenders, taken the town. 1 Marine had been killed, 10 were wounded, and another 50 had been incapacitated from the humid tropical heat. So, after the excitement of this combat, garrison duty became his routine. He met Littleton Waller, a fellow Marine with whom he maintained a lifelong friendship. When Waller received command from a company in Guam, he was allowed to select 5 officers to take with him. Butler was among his choices. Before they had departed, their orders were changed, and they were sent to China aboard the USS Solace to help put down the Boxer Rebellion. Now, the Boxer Rebellion was a rebellion in China towards the end of the Qing Dynasty, that revolved around anti-imperialism, anti-Christian sentiment. Like they were trying to get America out, basically. Boxer Uprising was an anti-foreign, anti-imperialist, and anti-Christian uprising in North China. There we go. So once in China, Butler was initially deployed to Tianjin. He took part in the Battle of Tianjin in July 13, 1900, in the subsequent Gas-Ili expedition, during which he saw mutilated remains of Japanese soldiers. When he saw another Marine officer fall wounded, he climbed out of a trench to rescue him. Butler was then shot in the thigh. Another Marine helped get him to safety, but he was also shot. Despite his leg wound, Butler assisted the wounded officer to the rear. 4 enlisted men would receive medals of honor in that battle. Butler's commanding officer, Major Waller, personally commended him and wrote that, quote, "For such reward as you may deem proper, the following officers: Lieutenant Smedley D. Butler, for the admirable control of his men in all the fights of the week, for saving a wounded man at risk to his own life and under very severe fire." Commissioned officers were not then eligible to receive the Medal of Honor, and Butler instead received a promotion to captain. Coherence screams, not to derail, but did you see the commercial yesterday during the Super Bowl? Seems interesting and relevant to consider how all things boil down to the military. No, actually, I didn't watch the Super Bowl. But if you find that commercial, link it to me. We'll have a look at it. Now, then he was sent to the Banana Wars. Now, Butler participated in a series of occupations in South America, or police actions, and interventions by the United States in Central America and the Caribbean, later called the Banana Wars, due to their goal of protecting U.S. commercial interests in the region, particularly those of the United Fruit Company. The company had led significant financial stakes in the production of bananas, tobacco, sugarcane, and other products throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and northern portions of South America. The U.S. was also trying to advance its own political interests by maintaining its influence in the region, especially its control of the Panama Canal. These interventions started with the Spanish-American War in 1898 and ended up with the withdrawal of troops from Haiti and President FDR's Good Neighbor policy in 1934. After his retirement, Butler became an outspoken critic of United States business interests in the Caribbean, criticizing the ways in which American businesses and Wall Street bankers imposed their agenda on U.S. foreign policy. In fact, there's a quote from Butler, probably in this video that I didn't want to watch and skipped. The year was 1900. 'Tis worth remembering the men who lived through 55 days at Peking. 'Twas called the Boxer Insurrection of Bloody Oriental War against all the nations of the diplomatic corps. Maybe. It depends. Depends on how interesting it is to me personally.
Effective.
I wanna find the bit where he's actually talking about this.
League broke. Its members included J.P. Morgan. They could avoid involved in were fought to benefit.
Here we go.
In the fall of 19 nearly $40 billion in assets. If adjusted for inflation, would be worth about $778 billion today. Had Butler been a different sort of person and gone along with the plot, the coup would have been successful.
That is actually on the list, Lord Fluffy Art.
Instead, in the fall of 1934, he went to J. Edgar Hoover, head of what would become the FBI.
Oh, God damn it. Whatever. The quote from Smedley D. Butler is likely probably in the Wikipedia article too, so we'll keep going. Now, in Honduras in 1903, Butler was stationed in Puerto Rico on Culebra Island. Hearing rumors of a Honduran revolt, the United States government ordered his unit and a supporting naval detachment to sail to Honduras 1,500 miles away to defend the U.S. consulate there. Using a converted banana boat renamed the Panther, Butler and several hundred Marines landed at the port town of Puerto Cortes. In a letter home, he describes the action. They were, quote, prepared to land and shoot everybody and everything that was breaking the peace, but instead found a quiet town. The Marines reboarded the Panther and continued up the coastline looking for rebels at several towns, but found none. Love to see, like, how openly evil we've always been. Even, like, the fact, like, Smedley Butler, by the way, is not a bad guy. He was just, like, a very good soldier, which by nature makes him a horrible person in the context of other people's rights. It's just when it came to American politics, he still had some of his ideals, you know? He had good ideals when it came to Americans. When they arrived at Trujillo, however, they heard gunfire and came upon a battle in progress that had been ongoing for 55 hours between rebels called Boncista and the Honduran government soldiers at the local fort. At the sight of the Marines, the fighting ceased. Butler led a detachment of Marines to the American consulate, where they found the American consul wrapped in an American flag, hiding among the floor beams. As soon as the Marines left, the fight just, like, went back to normal. Battle resumed. During this expedition, Butler earned his first nickname, Old Gimlet Eye. It was attributed to his feverish, bloodshot eyes. He was suffering from some unnamed tropical fever at this point that enhanced his penetrating and bellicose stare. So he looked insane, basically. Also spent some time in Nicaragua. Like, dude's been everywhere, right? Bombing Veracruz. Then we get to Haiti, after which he, like, finally leaves that area. So during World War I, Butler was, to his disappointment, not assigned to a combat command on the Western Front. He made several requests for posting in France, writing letters to his personal friend Wendell Cushing Neville. While Butler's superiors considered him brave and brilliant, though, they described him as unreliable. On October of 1918, at the age of 37, he was promoted to the rank of brigadier general and placed in command of Camp Pontenizan at Brest, France, a debarkation depot that funneled troops from the American Expeditionary Forces to the battlefields. The camp had been unsanitary, overcrowded, and disorganized. The U.S. Secretary of War, Newton Baker, sent novelist Mary Roberts Reinhardt to report on the camp. She later described how Butler tackled the sanitation problems, began solving the problems of mud. The ground under the tents was nothing but mud, so he raided the wharf at Brest of the duckboards, rather. I was like, why can't I read all of a sudden? No need for the trenches. Carted the first ones up himself. A 4-mile-long hill trek. Love that. And provided something in the way of protection for the men to sleep on. General John J. Pershing authorized a duckboard shoulder patch for the units, and this earned Butler another nickname, Old Duckboard, for his exemplary service. He was awarded both the Army Distinguished Service Medal and the Navy Distinguished Service Medal, as well as the French Order of the Black Star. Holy shit, best emotes ever. I'm glad you like him, Nui Harime, rather. So, then we get to his time as Philadelphia Director of Public Safety. So in 1924, the newly elected mayor of Philadelphia, W. Freeland Kenrick, asked President Calvin Coolidge to lend the city a military general to help him rid Philadelphia's municipal government of crime and corruption. At the urging of Butler's father, Coolidge authorized Butler to... Sorry, I was like, did I miss a part? No. Okay. Authorized Butler to take the necessary leave from the Corps and to serve as Philadelphia's Director of Public Safety, in charge of running the city's police and fire departments from January 1924 to December of 1925. He began his new job by assembling 4,000 of the city's police in the Metropolitan Opera House in shifts to introduce himself and inform them that things would change while he was in charge, since he had not been given authority to fire corrupt police officers. He switched the entire units from one part of the city to another in order to undermine local protection rackets and profiteering, based, by the way, and incredibly smart. Within 48 hours of taking over, Butler organized raids on more than 900 speakeasies. Yeah, the dude was very pro-prohibition. Ordering that they be padlocked and destroyed in many cases, and in addition to raiding speakeasies, he attempted to eliminate other illegal activities, including bootlegging, prostitution, gambling, and police corruption. More zealous than he was political, he ordered crackdowns on the social elite's favorite hangouts, such as the Ritz-Carlton and the Union League, also based, as well as on drinking establishment that served the working class. Although he was effective at reducing crime and police corruption, he was a controversial leader. In one instance, he made a statement that he would promote the first officer to kill a bandit and stated, quote, "I don't believe there is a single bandit notch on a policeman's gun in this city. Go out and get some." Although many of the local citizens and police felt that the raids were just a show, they continued for several weeks. Yeah, not so great there. You achieve global socialism and kill 1 billion innocent people, or you don't achieve global socialism, but 1 billion people are saved from death. Are you asking me that question? Because, like, there's more to it than that. I would need more details than just that to give an answer to there. Because, like, socialism can mean a bunch of different things, clearly, to a bunch of different people. It doesn't necessarily mean all that much. Oh, it's a poll, is it? Sorry, I didn't have the thing open. Ah, there it is. Let me actually put in the poll. Socialism at 1 billion people cost. Yes, no. There you go. Okay, yeah. So the ideal version of whatever you're thinking. I'm curious how effective this will be, but perhaps recruitment is not the primary goal. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Let's finish this. We got a decent amount to get through here, so. Among his many accomplishments as Director of Public Safety, he implemented programs to improve city safety and security, blah, 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 blah. None of that matters, right? Then we get down to the bonus army after he retired and after his failed Senate campaign. So during his Senate campaign, Butler spoke out forcefully about veterans' bonuses. Veterans of World War I, many of whom who had been out of work since the beginning of the Great Depression, sought immediate cash payments of these service certificates granted to them for 8 years earlier, or granted them 8 years earlier, via the World War Adjusted Compensation Act of 1924. Each service certificate issued to a qualified veteran soldier bore a face value equal to the soldier's promised payment, plus compound interest. The problem was that these certificates, like bonds, matured 20 years from the date of original issuance. Thus, under extant law, the service certificates could not be redeemed until 1945. In June of 1932, approximately 43,000 marchers, including 17,000 World War I veterans and their families and affiliated groups, protested in Washington, D.C. The Bonus Expeditionary Force, also known as the Bonus Army, marched on Washington to advocate for the passage of the soldier's bonus for service during World War I. After Congress adjourned, bonus marchers remained in the city and became unruly. On July 28, 1932, 2 bonus marchers were shot by police, causing the entire mob to become hostile and riotous. The FBI, then known as the United States Federal Bureau, the Bureau of Investigation, United States Bureau of Investigation checked its fingerprints records and obtained the police records of individuals who had been arrested during the riot and who had participated during the bonus march. Now, the veterans made camp in Anacostia Flats while they awaited the congressional decision on whether or not to pay the bonus. The motion known as the Patman Bill, which was decisively defeated, the veterans stayed in their camp, and on July 19th, Butler arrived with his young son Thomas the day before the official eviction by the Hoover administration. He walked through the camp and spoke to the veterans. He told them that they were fine soldiers and they had a right to lobby Congress as much as any corporation did. He and his son spent the night, ate with the men, and by the morning, Butler gave a speech to the camping veterans. He instructed them to keep their sense of humor, cautioned them not to do anything that would cause them to lose public sympathy. And on July 28th, the Army cavalry units led by General Douglas MacArthur dispersed the bonus army by riding through it using gas during the conflict. Several veterans were killed or injured, and Butler declared himself Hoover for ex-president Republican. That's very funny. In regards to the question, can I time it for a due date? I don't want... What? What do you mean, Nui Harime? Now, after this, and after his, retirement, Butler regularly had anti-war speeches. Butler became widely known for his outspoken lectures against war profiteering, U.S. military adventurism, and what he viewed as a nascent fascism in the United States. In December of 1933, Butler toured the country with James E. Van Zandt to recruit members for the Veterans of Foreign Wars. He described their efforts as trying to educate the soldiers out of the sucker class, literally talking about class distinction here. In his speeches, he denounced the Economy Act of 1933, calling on veterans to organize politically to win their benefits, and condemned the FDR administration for its ties to big business. The VFW reprinted one of his speeches with the title, "You Got to Get Mad," in its magazine Foreign Service. He said, quote, "I believe in taking Wall Street by the throat and shaking it up." That's pretty based. He believed that rival veterans groups like the American Legion, which was the center of American fascism at the time, or rather one of the major centers of American fascism, was controlled by the banking interest. And on December 8th, 1933, he said, "I have never known one leader of the American Legion who had never sold them out." And I mean it. And I don't think that he was lying at all. I believe him. Now, in addition to his speeches to pacifist groups, he served from 1935 to 37 as spokesperson for the American League Against War and Fascism. In 1935, he wrote the expose "War is a Racket" in a trenchant condemnation of the profit motive behind warfare. His views on the subject are summarized by the following passage from the November 1935 issue of the socialist magazine, Common Sense. Quote, "I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service. During that period, I spent most of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I helped make Mexico, and especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect revenues in. I helped in raping half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Banking House of Brown Brothers in 1902 to 1912. I brought light to the Dominican Republic for the American sugar interest in 1916. And I helped make Honduras right for the American Fruit Company in 1903. In China in 1927, I helped see to it that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. Looking back on it, I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate his racket in 3 districts. I operated on 3 continents." Which is again, regardless of whether or not he's a good person, he's objectively a badass. 100% a badass. And he seems to have gotten better with age. Now, his part in the business plot. In November of 1934, Butler claimed the existence of a political conspiracy by business leaders to overthrow President Roosevelt. A series of allegations that became known to the media as the business plot, a special committee of the House of Representatives, headed by Representatives John W. McCormick of Massachusetts and Samuel Dickstein of New York, who was later alleged to have been a paid agent of the NKVD, which, by the way, like, very funny, he was. This didn't come out until the 90s, I believe. I don't know, I don't want people to die to archive world peace, but if World War III was literally happening, I would do it because people would still be dying. If, like, that's the thing. Like, the answer to that question, objectively, in the idealist possible sense, is a yes. Because, like, yes, 1 billion deaths are terrible, but several billion are worse. And in continuing on this road that we're on is going to lead to death everywhere. I mean, at least just based on climate change alone, not even including World War III. Like, billions of people are going to die. Not 1 billion, but several billion otherwise. 1 billion at the cost of 7 billion? Is at the cost of 1 billion lives to save 7 billion lives? The 7 billion lives are to be saved. Like, that's the right answer. Sorry. Now, they heard his testimony in secret, and the McCormick-Dickstein Committee was a precursor to the House of Un-American Activities Committee. Now, in November of 1934, Butler told the committee that one Gerald P. McGuire told him that a group of businessmen, supposedly backed by a private army of 500,000 ex-soldiers and others, intended to establish a fascist dictatorship. Butler had been asked to lead it, he said, by McGuire, who was a bond salesman with Grayson MP Murphy, and The New York Times reported that Butler had told friends that General Hugh S. Johnson, former head of the National Recovery Administration, was to be installed as dictator, and that J.P. Morgan banking firm was behind the plot. They were one of the different, industries that were behind the plot. Butler told Congress that McGuire told him that that the attempted coup was backed by $3 million, and that 500,000 men were probably to assemble in Washington, D.C. the following year. All the parties alleged to be involved publicly said that there was no truth to the story, calling it a joke or a fantasy. What about 7 billion to save humanity? I mean, humanity's only 8 billion, so that doesn't really, math, does it? Coherent scream. But, I mean, like, if it's 7 billion people die, or all of us go extinct, then yeah, 7 billion people should die over everyone dying. If it's everyone's gonna die, or most people are gonna die, I would prefer not everyone die. Really quickly, what is $3 million from 1933 adjusted for inflation today? It is $70 million. So this was a $70 million scheme in an attempt to coup the government. In its report to the House, the committee stated that, quote, while no evidence was presented to show a connection with any fascist activities of any European country, there was no question that these attempts were discussed, were planned, and might have been placed in execution, and that your committee was able to verify all the pertinent statements made by General Butler, with the exception of the direct statement about the creation of this organization. This, however, was corroborated in correspondences with McGuire, with his principal, Robert Sterling Clark. Now, I got it, don't worry. More fluffy art, but thank you. Let me double check again, just to make sure that, like, because when you just search a number on Google, it is absolutely based on, AI, but no, you know what, fuck it, who cares? It's like $70 million. Somewhere in that ballpark, 50 to 100 million. So, no prosecutions or further investigations followed. Historians have questioned whether or not a coup was actually contemplated. Yes, it was. Historians have not reported on any independent evidence from Butler's report. Schmidt says McGuire was an inconsequential trickster. The news media dismissed the plot, the New York Times equating it to a gigantic hoax. Unsurprising, as we know how the capital class behaves. Here, let's take a look at the coup as a whole. So, the business plot to overthrow Franklin Delano Roosevelt. do. A lot of this was because they were mad about the gold restrictions, the loss of the gold standard, as well as lots of different policies that were instituted by FDR in the New Deal that negatively impacted the wealthy. For example, the Glass-Steagall Act. Are we having fun yet? Were we supposed to be headless chicken? Now, the Glass-Steagall Act was later, taken away again, unsurprisingly, but it was one of the first major banking reform that we've gotten. The separation of commercial and investment banking prevented securities firms and investment banks from being able to take deposits from the commercials, Federal Reserve member banks, and for dealing in non-governmental securities for customers, blah, blah, blah. Like a lot of the other things that also came from the New Deal was things like the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is also now pretty much gone. But as we go forward, imagine how great things would be if we never moved on from horse carriages. Without cars, there might not be anywhere as much oil drilling and less deadbeats letting gas prices in. Well, at the same time, we have made some positive technological innovations since that time, Nui Harry May. I feel like we can't discount some of the positive stuff that's come from tech, but yes, I hate cars. Don't forget the rising threat of communism and socialism. Oh, don't worry, that comes up in the story. But, yes, it was partially that. It was more just the fact that it's the same systems that are motivating the billionaire class today. They want more money, they want less regulation, and they want more power. They want monopolies, they want to consolidate wealth. This was their attempt at undoing the gains of FDR. Remember, prior to FDR, we had Herbert Hoover, who, during Herbert Hoover's presidency, we had people living in slums in places all over the country called Hoovervilles, which were little tent cities. We had the Great Depression, obviously. We had we had an amount of suffering in the United States that led to people fighting and dying in labor movements, in union organizing, in strikes. And this led to a lot of the changes that came with FDR. These things pissed off the wealthy, just like they continued to piss off the wealthy. And they tried at the time to remove FDR by force to undo these. Instead, they managed to undo quite, a few of them over time. But this is the same motivation as today's fascist billionaire coup of the government. The only difference being, at that point, they had failed, and in this point, they succeeded. So, we don't really need to learn more about Smedley Butler, and not his background at the very least, considering we already covered that, but Butler was shocked when President Herbert Hoover ordered General Douglas MacArthur to clear and burn the Bonus Army's camp. Now the plot begins. In July of 1933, Butler was approached at his home by two well-dressed men. One of them was Gerald McGuire, who identified himself as part of the Connecticut American Legion. At this first meeting, McGuire tried to convince Butler to run for commander of the American Legion at the upcoming convention. For years, Butler had been critical of the American Legion's leadership. He believed that the leaders had failed to adequately support veterans. However, Butler turned down the offer. A month later, two men went to Butler's home again with a new plan. They wanted Butler to gather hundreds of American Legion members, legionnaires, to back Butler for commander at the Legion convention in Chicago. McGuire assured Butler that $100,000 was in the bank to support the expenses of the legionnaires' backers. McGuire also gave Butler a prepared speech to deliver at the convention. Butler refused McGuire's new plan. The prepared speech demanded that the legions pressure Roosevelt to restore the gold standard, supposedly to pay the bonus army. Butler became suspicious about the motives of McGuire and the other men. Good instinct on Butler there, because, again, the American Legion was very much a fascist organization, and this was a fascist coup. Now, McGuire approached Butler about this plan a third time in September again 1933. Butler asked who was backing this plan, and McGuire mentioned several wealthy Wall Street businessmen, including his boss, stockbroker Grayson Murphy, a founder of the American Legion. McGuire boasted that Murphy had received a medal from Benito Mussolini, the fascist leader of Italy, whom Butler despised. Great way to get him on board. Be like, oh, look, you know, the guy who hired me actually got a medal from that guy that you really fucking hate. McGuire also named Robert Clark as a backer of the plan. Clark was a stock investor whom Butler knew as the millionaire lieutenant in China. To convince Butler of the plan, McGuire pulled 18 $1,000 bills from his wallet and offered them to Butler. This would be the equivalent of around $400,000 in 2023. Butler angrily refused what he considered to be an obvious bribe, based as fuck again. And a few days later, Butler realized that he needed to gather evidence about the financial backers of McGuire's proposal. He wrote to McGuire saying that he would carry out the plot after all, but only with proof that the Legionnaires would be paid. Meeting the financier. McGuire arranged a meeting between General Butler and Robert Clark. Clark pressed Butler to make the gold standard speech. Clark said that he paid the chief lawyer for JP Morgan's Wall Street firm to write the speech. Quote, "We want the gold," Clark told Butler, supposedly for the benefit of the soldiers. Clark revealed to Butler that he had $30 million and he did not want to lose it because of the New Deal. In fact, I think one part of this story is him saying that he would happily lose half of that $30 million to save the other half. Clark told Butler that FDR was weak, that Butler's speech at the Legion convention, he argued, would gain soldiers' support and force FDR to restore the gold standard. When Butler refused again to make the speech, Clark became irritated and refused to pay Butler's home mortgage. He also said that other wealthy backers of the plan preferred General MacArthur to General Butler, whom they considered too radical. Later, the American Legion convention voted to endorse the gold standard without Butler's speech, but Roosevelt did not change his policy. As things are, it seems like in regards to tech, all of the tech-based billionaires saw all of those films set in cyberpunk dystopias and thought, damn, that looks amazing, let's make it real. Basically, yeah, Nui Herme. That is kind of where we're going there. But fascist influences. So meanwhile, McGuire went to Europe to study fascist groups in Italy, Germany, Spain, and France. Italy and Germany, in the 1930s, the mid-1930s. Yeah, that really would be the good place to go to help, you know, learn about fascism. Spain as well, but in those countries, helped support fascism and dictatorship. He would later testify that Robert Clark funded his study trip. Upon returning in the spring of 1934, he met with Smedley Butler again. This time he tried to persuade Butler to lead a veterans army like the Cross of Fire group that had staged an insurrection in France. He told Butler that it would be a peaceful military takeover of Roosevelt's presidency. Well, for one, let's just say the veterans taking over, like a veteran insurrection is not a peaceful military takeover. Just because they're veterans doesn't make it a military takeover. This is not a junta. It's not a coup being done by the military. It's a coup being done by veterans. That doesn't make it a military takeover. But obviously fascists love to twist their words. The pretext, he said, would be FDR's poor health, Butler's patriotism, beloved reputation among veterans, and his speech before the bonus army 2 years earlier made him the perfect man for the job, McGuire thought. If General Butler's armies would topple Roosevelt, the plot involved Roosevelt turning over power to a, quote, Secretary of General Affairs who would act as a dictator and restore the gold standard. FDR would remain as a figurehead, like the powerless king of Italy. If FDR resisted, he would be forced to resign. Sorry, I gotta get that good stretch in. Now, if you can believe it, Butler was appalled. He believed that McGuire's new plot was treason, and that's because it was. And he told McGuire that he needed time to think about it, but really he wanted time to carefully think about how he should alert the government. The plot was so outrageous, who would believe it? He tried to alert the press, but they obviously didn't care. He contacted reporter Paul French at the Philadelphia Record, who investigated Butler's story. Butler introduced him to McGuire as someone sympathetic to McGuire's cause, so that McGuire revealed to French all the details of the plot. God, Butler was smart. Now, Smedley, my guy, my man. Butler went to J. Edgar Hoover, director of the Federal Division of Intelligence, which later became the FBI, but Hoover said that there was no federal crime yet for him to investigate. In reality, Hoover was already investigating American fascist groups and may have been aware of Maguire's activities. So the House Committee investigation. Beginning on November 20th, 1934, members of the House of Representatives Special Committee on Un-American Activities, which is an interesting name, you know, met secretly in New York City to take testimony about what the press would call the business plot. Because it was funded by wealthy and prominent businessmen, Representative John McCormick, a Democrat from Massachusetts, and Representative Samuel Dickstein, a Democrat from New York, led the hearing. Smedley Butler, Gerald Maguire, and the reporter Paul French each gave testimony under oath. Butler testified that what he experienced in the meetings, what he had with Butler testified to what he experienced in the meetings he had with Maguire and Clark. At the first meeting, Maguire told Butler that Roosevelt himself did not want Butler to attend the American Legion Convention. I quote, I thought I smelled a rat right away. Butler testified that they were trying to get me mad and to get my goat. Butler continued, I could not reconcile their desires to serve the ordinary men in their ranks with their other aims. That's because their other aims were their actual goal. Butler recounted what he said to Clark in their first meeting. Quote, I have no interest in that. I have one interest, and that is the maintenance of democracy. That is the only thing I took an oath to sustain democracy, and that is what I am going to do, and nothing else. I am not going to get these soldiers marching around stirred up over the gold standard. Regarding Maguire's plot to replace FDR with a dictator, Butler quoted Maguire, quote, you know the American people will swallow that. We have got the newspapers. We will start a campaign that the president's health is failing. Everybody can tell that by looking at him, and the dumb American people will fall for it in a second. Sounds kind of like the messaging around Biden, doesn't it? Now, Biden definitely had failing health, but not as much as Donald Trump did. They were both absolutely losing their minds. But it's much more noticeable with Biden because of his stutter. But I've seen him make more sense than Trump, even recently, for a long time now. Now next, Paul French testified about his independent investigation of Butler's claims. He confirmed that Butler's story to the committee during the course of our conversations. French said Maguire continually discussed the need for a man on a white horse, as he called it, a dictator who would come galloping with a group of organized veterans to save capitalism. Gotta save capitalism, guys. Now, committee members McCormick and Dickstein quoted Maguire for 3 days. He denied almost all of Butler's story. Frequently, he answered the committee members' questions by saying, not to my recollection, or I do not remember. In sworn testimony, he denied Butler's and French's assertions about the plot to overthrow FDR. Now, the committee wanted to question financier Robert Clark, who Butler had said offered him a bribe, but Clark was in Europe and never appeared for the committee. Now, the press originally called this a hoax, unsurprisingly, as, you know, even Maguire said, we have the newspapers, we own the media. Why would the media tell you about what's actually happening if we own the media? The New York Times barely covered the plot, but quoted denials of men named by Butler. Thomas Lamont, a partner in J.P. Morgan & Co., called Butler's story perfect moonshine. Grayson Murphy, Maguire's boss, said the plot was an absolute lie. Gerald Maguire, publicity stunt. Yes, of course. Now we see the committee's final report came in on February of 1935. It submitted in its final report to the House of Representatives. Among its findings were the following. The committee received evidence showing that certain persons had made an attempt to establish a fascist organization in this country. That was confirmed. Secondly, there is no question that these fascist attempts were discussed, were planned, and might have been placed in execution when and if the financial backers deemed it expedient. I've been calling him. McGurry. I've been saying his name wrong this whole time. Denied these allegations under oath, but your committee was able to verify all the pertinent statements made by General Butler, with the exception of direct statements suggesting the creation of the organization. This, however, was corroborated in response to McQueer with his principal, Robert Sterling Clark of New York City. While McQueer was abroad studying the various forms of veterans organizations of fascist character. Yeah, look, you put that shit down in writing, you send it across to Europe, you send it back to America. It's going to get caught. Now, the committee concluded that armed forces for the purpose of establishing a dictatorship through the instrumentality of the proletariat, or a dictatorship predicated on racial and religious hatreds, have no place in this country. The final report deleted the identity of nearly all the plotters and censored some of the testimony. No criminal charges were ever filed against the plotters, and nonetheless, Butler seemed satisfied that the coup had been stopped. This is the greatest problem with America. Why the fuck didn't we charge these people? Well, I know why. It's because they were rich. We should have put them in jail and taken all of their money from them. Even back then. Maybe if we did it back then, they might not have been so keen to try it again. I mean, it's not like they didn't get most of the things that they want anyway over time by just lobbying Republicans over and over and over again. But the committee sent a copy of its report to President Roosevelt. FDR said he was interested in the report. Otherwise, FDR remained silent about its findings. Well, the business plot ended, as we know. But the press ignoring this was a pretty big deal. Journalist John Spivak published a testimony in 1935 with the names and businesses that had been deleted. Even then, there was a muted reaction from the press, Congress, and the public. We got our whistleblower, John Spivak, the based whistleblower. And some have speculated that this silence and FDR's silence was due to the fact that FDR's own advisors within the Democratic Party were involved with the business plot. Really seems pretty likely that they were, because as we know now, the two-party system exists to entrench the role of capital as the rulers of the country. Capital has always been in charge, even back then, even now. Therefore, the details were mostly hidden from the public for national security. Spivak was also a communist, which should not enhance his credibility with the press, members of Congress, or the White House. Of course. Did it end? Well, I mean, did it end? Did it really go away in full? No, of course not. Like they failed the coup, sure, but none of that shit went away, especially if nobody gave a shit when all the names were published. So Arthur Jules Archer interviewed committee chair John McCormick in 1971, and McCormick said that Butler was telling the truth. He told Archer that the plotters got the wrong man for the job, which is true, and thank God that they did. In other matters, Congress passed the long-delayed World War I Veterans Bonus Act in 1936 over FDR's veto. FDR said that the bill was technically not a relief bill for veterans. Extremist, neo-fascist, and seditious movements have arisen in the United States since Butler's time. Recently, some extremists... Yeah, we know. Trust me, we know. Now, beyond that, though, there's a part of this that, isn't in here, really quickly. So, again, the people that were part of this, that were shown to be part of this in the committee, are people like John W. Davies, General Hugh Johnson, General Harbord Thomas W. Lamont, Admiral Sims, Hanford McNider. The committee will not take cognizance of names brought into the testimony which constitute merely hearsay. So you needed some form of evidence to show that it was anything to do with these people. Even back then, we did, actually, especially back then, we held at least some kind of a value to ethics. Not much more than we do now, but at least a little. But the one thing that's quite interesting here is Prescott Bush. Now, it's been reported that Prescott Bush, George W. Bush's grandfather, was part of the business plot, but he wasn't, because he was too involved with actual Nazis to be involved in the business plot. In July of 2007, a BBC investigation reported that Prescott Bush, father of U.S. President George H.W. Bush and grandfather of then President George W. Bush, was to have been a key liaison between the 1933 business plotters and the newly emerged Nazi regime in Germany. Although this has been disputed by Jonathan Katz, a misconception caused by a clerical research error. According to Katz, Prescott Bush was too involved with actual Nazis to be involved with something so homegrown as the business plot. Now, almost certainly, he would have been involved if the plot had succeeded. The only reason he wasn't is because it failed. But it is very funny that the reason that George W. Bush's grandfather was not involved in the business plot was because that he was too much of a Nazi for the pro-Nazi fascists. It's like, you can't make that shit up. Now, let's listen to Smedley. Old Smedley.
I appeared before the Congressional Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena.
There is an actual group of Nazis that are growing. I'm not sure if that flag belongs to that group, but there's several of them. The black background swastika flag, like, you can Google what group that it's a part of, but there is a National Socialist network growing in a lot of the world at the moment.
Committee, the highest representation of the American people, under subpoena to tell what I knew of activities which I believe might lead to an attempt to set up a fascist dictatorship. The plan as outlined to me was to form an organization of veterans, to use as a bluff, or as a club at least, to...
That flag belongs to Blood Tribe, apparently, which is a Nazi group in the U.S. that started in 2020.
Intimidate the government and break down our democratic institutions. The upshot of the whole thing was that I was supposed to lead an organization of 500,000 men, which would be able to take over the functions of government. I talked with an investigator for this committee, who came to me with a subpoena on Sunday, November 18th. He told me they had unearthed evidence linking my name with several such veteran organizations. As it then seemed to me to be getting serious, I felt it was my duty to tell all I knew of such activities to this committee. My main interest in all this is to preserve our democratic institution. I want to retain the right to vote, the right to speak freely, and the right to write. If we maintain these basic principles, our democracy is safe. No dictatorship can exist with suffrage, freedom of speech, and press.
So, that was our boy, Smedley. By the way, I'm joking, good guy Dari. That was Homegrown American. And, man's based. Now, this is FDR. Lord Fluffy Art, you wanted me to play this, and I'm always happy to listen to FDR talk.
For nearly 4 years now, you have had an administration which, instead of twirling its thumbs, has rolled up its sleeves. And I can assure you that we will keep our sleeves rolled up.
If you guys would like to read War is a Racket by Smedley Butler, here is a link to a PDF.
We had to struggle with the old enemies of peace: business and financial monopoly, speculation, reckless banking, class antagonism, sectionalism, war profiteering. They had begun to consider the government of the United States as a mere appendage to their own affairs. And we know now that government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob.
In fact, I would go so far as to say more dangerous.
Never before in all our history have these forces been so united against one candidate as they stand today. They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
Jesus, that was a loud applause. Man was based, in some ways. Not so much in other ways, but enough. Now, still on the subject for a moment before we hop off, let's talk about how this applies to today. Now, that was the business plot, right? That was the fascist dictatorship that wealthy financiers tried to install in the United States in the early 1930s. People like J.P. Morgan, or rather, companies like J.P. Morgan and their henchmen, for example. Another was Remington Arms, DuPont, several other corporations played a very large role in funding the business plot. What's up, Shardspork? It's been a minute. We're just finishing up with learning about the business plot. Now, bringing that to today, their goals are not all that different. Obviously, like, the gold standard shit's gone. Like, we're not even worried about that anymore. We're trying to have the crypto standard now. But a lot of it is still reduce regulations, make it so that you can have monopolies again, and remove things that were instituted as part of the New Deal, such as the 40-hour work week, such as the 5-day work week, the 9-to-5, for example. Things that Americans fought and died for in labor disputes, in unions, in strikes, in actual physical battles over unionism. Or unionizing, rather, not unionism. That's a whole, like, not a word there. Jesus Christ. Just got back from my research trip. Base, did you have fun? See anything cool? So here's what they want today.
Yes, they're anti-government fundamentalists, but the real reason why they do that, they want to do mass privatization looting. So what he'll do is sell these properties to his robber baron buddies and let them price gouge taxpayers to make billions of dollars. It's about getting a parasitic middleman in there that can skim off the top and make billions of dollars while sitting on their ass at Mar-a-Lago.
The parasitic middleman is an exceptionally pertinent example in relation to the business plot, because that was the whole point as well. It was the parasitic middleman was meant to be Smedley Butler, was to be the dictator whose job it is to remove regulations so that the corporations can more easily siphon money. Got to play with 400 EV X-ray beams? Geez, that sounds fun and dangerous.
That's the
point. Which is the best kind of fun.
So everybody needs to understand, this is organized, systemic, planned out corruption from the top down.
Yeah.
And everything they do needs to be viewed through that lens. Yes, they're anti-government.
It is. Like, Kyle is 100% correct. Organized, systemic, planned out corruption and theft of your goods, your money, your taxes, your labor, and your health. But as well as, like, Kyle Kulinski, there's even, you know, weak people like Jamie Raskin.
There are a lot of very right-wing MAGA Republicans like Steve Bannon who are completely opposed to Elon Musk and what he's doing. Bannon has called him a truly evil person, and Laura Loomer has warned of what they're trying to do in terms of creating a techno-state monarch in the new century. Obviously,
it's funny how we're talking about Laura Loomer and Steve Bannon in a way that, like, they're correct and are on, at least in the issue of fuck Elon, the same side. They're not in any way remotely on our side. They just are against Elon Musk. Not even really just the business class coup, but just Elon.
Elon Musk has much bigger plans than Donald Trump, who, we know just wants to become the richest person in the world and get all the attention. But Elon Musk would really like to completely overthrow our system of government and move us into some kind of techno monarchy under the geniuses of Silicon Valley. I find that there are a lot of...
Oh, sorry, this one's breaking just now. We finally had a Republican tell the truth for once.
Government, what are these people, many of them young staffers without government experience, doing with my private information? I mean, as we know, that they've accessed private information about, for example, those who have received disaster relief and the DHS system. What can you tell us about that data, what they're doing with it, what they're accessing?
Yeah, well, first of all, they're not interested in anybody's particular private data because within these systems, they are payment systems of where money was going out, and they're gaining visibility and access to that. I will tell you that I strongly believe, that the request that they had, they were not receiving positive viewpoints on. People did not want to comply. So when they chose not to comply, they brought their own people in who broke into, so to speak, these databases.
Oh, they broke into the databases, so you say. You mean the non-government workers? The people who are unelected and just vaguely related to the government in their non-governmental organization role, broke into private, secure, encrypted data that the government held, your personal information? I wonder, is that illegal? Yes, it is. It's very illegal.
And provided the information we needed, and the government people, computer programmers were shocked.
Again, also like hiring private security mercenaries like Blackwater to hold elected officials, members of Congress, out of like federal property, of government buildings. Like, it's insane that we're even talking about this. All right, Coherent Scream. Now I will watch the Super Bowl ad. I just wanted to get through that segment without the interruption, because then I would lose my entire train of thought. So thanks for waiting there. So let's see. Secret Service drops Super Bowl video that will give you goosebumps. Let's have a look.
America was founded on an idea of freedom. America's always stepped forward in time of need throughout our short but powerful history.
Yeah, that's the one that you linked, isn't it?
Not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Tear down this wall. We've been there for all of it.
150.
The second plane hit the tower. Our heroes are humble.
I can't believe they included the meme.
They have an inner pride to keep this idea alive. Protectors are born, they're not made.
Just like the most overt propaganda.
America's Secret Service protecting this Super Bowl is asking a few more to step forward.
All right. A, it's probably like they do want recruitment, but B, they're trying to just gain some points back with Republicans after failing to prevent 2 assassination attempts. Realistically. To be fair, this was the person. This was the person they were trying to prevent the assassination attempts against. So
Trump is surrounded by women as music blares in the background. After a while,
Trump goes to greet 3 new guests. Among them, the financier.
Oh, just so you know, USAID paid me to post this video.
Jeffrey Epstein. More than a decade before his guilty plea on state prostitution charges. Later in the footage, Trump is seen talking to Epstein and another man as women are dancing in front of them. Trump alternates between dancing and pointing out women to Epstein and the other man and telling Epstein about the cameras. Though exactly what they say is difficult to understand as they discuss the women and their appearances.
I'm gonna get copyrighted just for playing this video with the music on in the background.
Look at her back there. She's hot. Here that makes him never liked Epstein.
I was not a
and again, like we've seen the videos and the audio of Epstein saying that Donald Trump is his best friend. USAID just paid us $20 million to post this video. Yeah, no, like obviously I was making the joke that I stole from Anonymous TV, but there's the credit. It's really funny that Republicans have no idea what USAID does, and yet they constantly are whinging about it right now. Every single thing that you can say gets countered with, well, what about USAID? All right. Well, shit. What's next? Let's see what's happening. I want to see if there's been any new, like, breaking news that's come out. They don't know what most of the government does or anything else for that matter. I mean, yeah. You're not wrong. Trump set to ease bribery law enforcement. Really? Make bribery great again? Okay. U.S. President Donald Trump is set to sign an executive order rolling back enforcement of a law that makes it illegal for U.S. companies to bribe foreign officials, arguing that restriction puts American firms at a disadvantage. Oh yes, you know, American firms are at a disadvantage because foreign companies constantly bribe American officials, but American companies aren't allowed to bribe? Like, really? Come on. They're allowed to bribe American officials, but they're not allowed to bribe foreign officials, and we really need to make sure that they can. It's like a comedian could not make this shit up. I'm waiting for, in a few months, someone goes, we need a new agency so we can project soft power and help the world. China is making lots of inroads, and we need to level the playing field. I don't really see that as happening, because I really do think that this administration, like, at first, I was trying to not come to the conclusion of this administration is working heavily for foreign nations, like foreign adversaries of ours, such as Russia and China. But if I was a Russian or a Chinese, like, agent, if I was working for them and I got in power, I would have done the exact same things that they did. Like, the USAID, that would be gone instantly. Starting trade wars with all of America's partners, yeah. Reducing US global hegemony all over the world, yeah. Get rid of the CIA and the FBI while they're doing investigations into cyber attacks from exactly the countries that we're talking about, as well as more, yeah. Like, if I was a foreign agent and I got into power, then I also would have done these things. Therefore, more likely than not, the people in power are foreign agents. Now, could they be non-foreign agents? Sure, but I think that's kind of worse. Because that just means they're stupid. Like, to an immeasurable, historic degree of stupid. I don't know which one's worse and which one's not. I'm not quite sure on that, but I mean, it's pretty insane. Oh, apparently Elon Musk says the Department of Education is no longer existent. There's that. Love to hear it. And we finally get one more judge. We're getting paid, yeah. And a judge has ordered Trump to unfreeze funds for federal grant programs. We'll see whether, they actually follow.
I want to bring in NBC's Garrett Haake, who's at the White House. Mark McKinnon was an advisor to President George W. Bush and John McCain, as well as creator of The Circus. And Joyce Vance is a former U.S. attorney, professor at the University of Alabama School of Law, and MSNBC legal analyst. So, Joyce, what is exactly in this order, and what is the practical impact?
Well, this is a very brief order from the judge in Rhode Island saying, look, government, it appears to me based on the evidence.
Look, government.
Evidence that's been put in front of me by the collective states attorneys general, who are the plaintiffs in this action, that you haven't been following my order. That order is a very temporary pause. It's called a TRO that tells the government you must discontinue this blanket freeze on spending. It appears to the judge that the government has not done that, and so the judge is now saying, you have an obligation to comply with my order immediately. You haven't done it. You need to do it
now. The thing is, yes, there is the obligation, but again, who is going to enforce this if they don't follow? The FBI has been truly and fully purged. The CIA purged. Who's going to arrest anybody over this?
Now.
And Garrett, let me read to you directly from the order, which I just got my hands on as well as Joyce did. It says, persons who make private determinations of the law and refuse to obey an order generally risk criminal contempt, even if the order is ultimately ruled incorrect. Of course, Donald Trump has avoided any real penalties, even when he has been convicted in the past. And what he's doing, I think it's fair to say, is an absolute cornerstone of what he intended to do from day one when he got into office.
Yeah, Chris, I think that's exactly right. President Trump and his team had long expressed throughout the campaign that they were going to test the bounds of executive authority, and they want to do so in the...
Look at you smiling like a little fucking ghoul. I don't care. They're either going to do it or they're not. Who cares? My money's on they're not going to listen to the courts. If they do, great. I don't expect it. Now, this stuff with bird flu is getting a lot more serious. We're now seeing evidence of human to cat and cat to human interactions and spreading of the disease. We are fairly sure that we are this close to human.
There is a flu surge
if not already.
Right now.
Because how the fuck would we know? Because U.S. agencies aren't going to tell us.
You have seen it for yourself. Doctors' offices and urgent care clinics are seeing a rise in cases. And the CDC says 13,000 people have died from influenza so far this season alone.
Jesus.
So joining me now is pediatrician Dr. Diane Hess. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. So are we seeing people of...
Could you not find an epidemiologist or a virologist? Why a pediatrician? Not to say that any less of a doctor, but most people watching this aren't kids.
All ages be impacted by the flu this season?
Yes, 100%. There's no one spared. It could be from babies to elderly and everyone in between.
Yeah, this we said this in the break. This hits very close to home for me and my family. My son had the flu.
Away.
Most of his class has been out with the flu at some point during this season. I want to ask you about the vaccine and the public's response to it. Is that impacting the flu's numbers this season? Do people just not get it? Enough people not get the vaccine? Or is the vaccine this year kind of...
Of course it does. But also, the vaccine changes every year to fit the strains of flu that change every year. Now, if one of these strains is bird flu and the vaccines don't include bird flu, which they wouldn't at this point, then of course they won't work as well. And we know that they might because, as we covered last stream, one of the very last things that the CDC did before it had to zip and shut up based on executive order was to tell New York's healthcare sector to start testing the people who come in with influenza A for bird flu, to test each and every one of them. And if they come in with influenza A and there's there is a degree of suspicion around whether or not they have bird flu, that they should be isolated in a room that is separate from everybody else and that has no ventilation that is attached to the rest of the hospital unless it is covered by like the high density particulate catcher stuff. It was half feral and spent the first half its time at my neighbor's anyway. I think things just happened a lot faster when I got the dog. Yeah, probably. I do love me a feral cat, though.
Bust? Is it that effective?
Well, it's not a bust because remember, the vaccine doesn't always prevent flu, but it prevents you from getting hospitalized from the flu.
Okay.
So yeah, numbers are down. Only about 41% of Americans, as of like December 7th, were vaccinated for the flu. So not enough people are vaccinated, but the people who are vaccinated and getting the flu are not the ones that are ending up in the hospital or dehydrated or having pneumonia on top of that. You know, they feel really poorly. They have vomiting, diarrhea, cough, cold, headache, body aches, but they recover.
Yeah, but shocking this year to see how long it kind of lingers, even after you haven't had a fever. It really knocks it out of a lot of people. It certainly did our family. What advice do you have for folks who are dealing with the flu right now in terms of treatment?
Drink a lot of water.
If you catch it within 48 hours, you can take either Tamiflu or Zofluza, which will, it won't cure the flu, but it'll minimize the symptoms. Otherwise, it's just rest, hydration, you know, medicines for headache, vomiting. If you're having vomiting, there's anti-nausea and anti-vomiting medications, but it's really just supportive care and staying home.
That is rough, but still based of you to try and save these cats.
To not get everybody else sick.
When do you expect the numbers to start to...
And if you're sick, wear a mask when you go outside. That's what the masks are for. It's not just for you to not, ideally, both parties are wearing a mask, but at the very least, the sixth party should be, too. All right. Well... On that note, I just want to say one more time, please learn to use a gun and buy a gun. This is what you can do when the Nazis come to your town. This is the part of Ohio where we had that Nazi rally, and the citizens of this town then went and formed a well-regulated militia to keep them out.
Yeah,
this is what you need to do.
Definitely. Look at my baby. What the fuck you talking about? What is you talking about? My baby, yeah.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point of the Second Amendment, is this right here.
Fuck on. Alright, cool. Let the cars come.
I want you guys to keep yourselves and your communities safe. Now, for tomorrow, I won't be here. I will be trying to set up that new air conditioning so that I don't die in the 107-degree heat that's tomorrow and the 113-degree heat that's the next day. But if I can, I'll be back tomorrow. If I can get this done today and early enough, then I'll get it done today, and I'll be back tomorrow like normal. If not, I'll be here Wednesday, and I'll post like updates because we'll be switching back to regular time and all of that. But in the meantime, I hope that you all have a lovely day, and I will see you all next time. Now we're gonna raid Zach really quickly. No, my aircon is not fixed still. It's actually probably not going to be fixed for like another 2 weeks. That's then. The issue being that my landlord is perfectly willing and able to buy a new air conditioner because the whole new one needs to be put in place. It's just there's no labor. Like they need a person to come and do that, and there is a distinct lack of people with that set of skills at the moment in my area, which is making it take ages. So it'll be a couple weeks. That's why I'm about to go drop $500 on a portable air conditioner so that I don't die. You know the wet towel trick? Yeah, I do. Anyway, see y'all next time. Oh wait, hold on. Raid still lining up. And yeah, it sounds like the US soon. Definitely. You guys got the cold now, we'll get the cold next, and you guys will get the hot.